just asking.
What kind of position do you have?
Oh, that way. I don't know, I don't have any clothes this bunch.
Our Protection and Welfare Committee will come to order, and we'll note all members are present. Alderman Scannell, Alderman Duane, Alderman Steuer is out in the hall, he'll be right here, and Alderman Weary. Can I have an approval of the agenda? Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Duane, second by Alderman Scannell. Any changes you wanted to do?
Move item
Okay.
17?
I've got some agendas if you need some.
18?
18.
Move item 18 to right after 13. Between 12 and 13.
Which one?
18 between 12 and 13.
Well, I need, okay,
17 as well?
Yep, 17 as well.
18 and 17?
yes.
Do we want to do, does it matter which one first? 18,
I need 17 first.
17?
I gotta.
So 12, 17, 18, and then on with the agenda.
12, 17.
All right with the committee?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3, approval of the minutes from June 10th, 2015.
Motion approved. Second?
Motion by Alderman Duane, second by Alderman Scannell to approve. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4, application for Class A beverage license for Shopko Stores Operating Company, LLC, 216 South Military and 2430 East Mason. Attorney,
No objections from the city attorney's office.
first I want to welcome you back, Attorney Gill.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
And I think we have someone kind of watching who's going to be filling in here in the future.
We have a new assistant city attorney, city prosecutor, Kristen Bonner. So she'll be taking over. I'm just kind of showing her the ropes on the first meeting here, and then she'll take over from here.
All right,
Well, welcome.
welcome.
You're watching, he
Yes.
showed you the ropes, that's all.
Yeah.
Captain, any
No objections.
committee?
I make a motion to accept.
Second?
Motion by Alderman Steuer, second by Alderman Scannell to approve. Under discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. If you're here for number 4, we just approved it. And I will mention for all the items tonight, this goes to council next week, Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So if you don't like how we voted, or you like how we voted, and you want to be there to make sure it goes through, ours is a recommendation to the rest of the council next week. So Tuesday, 7 o'clock in the large room next door. All right, number 5, application for Class B beverage license by Von Stiel Winery, 345 South Adams.
No objections from the city attorney's office. No objections from the police department.
Make a
Move to
motion.
approve.
I'd like to make that
Oh.
motion. I used to work for them.
Okay, well,
I make a motion to approve.
second?
Motion by Alderman Steuer, second by Alderman Scannell. Under discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
There you go.
That item was approved. Number 6, application for a Class B combination license by Knutson Ventures, 1583 Main Street. Attorney.
No objections from the city attorney's office.
No objections.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Duane to approve the Knutson Ventures LLC, 1583 Main Street. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That one was approved. Number 7, application for a Class B combination license by Vintage WMW LLC, 119 South Washington, currently Cafe Espresso.
No objections from the city attorney's office. No objections.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Alderman Duane, second by Alderman Scannell. Under discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7 is approved. Number 8, renewal application for a Class B combination license by Kathleen Broder, 1332 Broadway. This was referred back from council. We heard it about a month ago here.
Correct. This was actually something that the city attorney's office brought forward for non-renewal. In the meantime, the applicant, the license holder in the city attorney's office have agreed to a stipulation. The license holder agreed to a voluntary suspension. So that has been approved. They're currently serving that suspension. So with that being said, the city attorney's office, based on that suspension, is fine with moving ahead and approving the renewal of this liquor license. And we will monitor it very closely.
Is there a date on that as far as?
The length of time is
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is when you're over the suspension? Okay. I think it was a 30-day suspension? Yes.
Suspension.
30-day suspension.
Anyone here for this item? In case we had any questions? Okay. Committee, have any questions of our attorney or our captain? Do you have anything there?
No, I don't need
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Alderman Duane, second by Alderman Scannell to approve. Under discussion, was there anyone else here for that item other than the applicant? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That was approved. It'll go to council next week. Thank you. Number 9, request by Walgreens for approval of appointed successor agent, 1401 East Mason.
No objections.
No objections.
Motion to approve.
I have,
Oh, sorry.
could you just explain that, Counselor?
Sure. Walgreens as a corporate entity has a liquor license. What they're doing, and when you're a corporate entity, you always have to appoint an individual agent. What they're doing is usually that's the manager of the store, and sometimes people come and leave, so then they just appoint a new person to be that agent. So that's all they're doing here. And I've done a background on the agent, and there's nothing on the records.
That is my district, thank you.
Yep.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Dwayne, second by Alderman Stoyer. Under discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 10 is a request by the owners of Party Line Tavern LLC to hold an outdoor event, 601 Bellevue Street, August 15th.
The city attorney's office has no objections. I believe this event happens every year. It's a very good event. They've indicated all of the factors that we look at in regards to security, fencing, music, will alcohol sales be there, and what time the event's going to end. So with that being said, we have no questions or objections to this.
I would concur with Council.
All right. Yeah, we have a 2-page, basically, outline of the event. I think, is this in your
That is my,
district?
yeah, that's correct.
Alderman Stoyer?
How have we had this event a number of times?
So good. The audience just,
Yeah, please.
Yes, this is a reoccurring annual event.
Yes, okay. All right, I'm good with that.
It's a huge fundraiser. It's well organized, and I'll make a motion to approve it.
motion by Alderman Dwayne,
Second.
second by Alderman Stoyer. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. If you're here for number 10, we just approved that. Goes to council next week. Number 11, request by the owners of Hinterland Brewery, 313 Dousman, to hold an outdoor event August 29th. Live music till 11.
The city attorney's office has no objections to this event. We just like a little more information in regards to if the area is going to be fenced off and
Wouldn't
what
be a
type of-
meeting without Alderman Scannell.
Yeah,
if there's fencing around the area and what type of security there will be. So I just asked to open the floor just so the applicant can ask those simple questions.
Anyone here from number 11, Hinterland Brewery?
I'm representing him.
You mind just coming up here and give us your name and address, please?
Name's Rob Chapinski, address 3720 Nicolay Drive, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Straczynski?
Chapinski.
Chipinski. Thanks.
Good Italian name.
yeah.
Chipinski.
I'm the operations manager at Hinterland. What we're proposing at this point is a large tent over our parking lot area, 60 by 90 tent, that would not necessarily be enclosed by a fence, but have that somewhat of a perimeter with the tent itself. We are proposing ticketing at this point, but that's still to be worked out to some extent. So.
What type of security or staff will you have that on? I guess the big concern is that people carry those intoxicants off the premises, and that's usually why we require some type of fencing. You know, if the committee's satisfied with having enough staffing and individuals to watch that to make sure that doesn't happen, I have no concerns.
Yeah, we have a front of house staff of about 20 that'll be employed that day, both serving as well as, monitoring the area and securing the area in general. So I think we should be able to relatively keep it contained to that specific area with 20 people or so.
So 20 people will all be outside, or is that inside?
Indoor and outdoor, but I would imagine a minimum of 10 people would be outside at any one time.
Alderman Stoyer?
Thank you, Chair. Rob, you've done this event before or not?
Actually, no, it's our 20th anniversary party.
So this is the first time?
It is, yeah. I mean, we've done some things similar in the past, and we've had experience with the farmers market being adjacent to our building as well on Wednesdays, and have some experience with that type of thing.
And I guess the question, a lot of these events, there will be fencing up usually, but you're right in the middle of it, and I'm just wondering if that would be a logistical issue for you, if we said something to that effect, if that would be a problem with fencing. But like I said, if you have that many people, you said you're comfortable with it, Jim?
If the committee is, we usually would require some type of fencing, just because you can contain the ingress and egress, and it's
Okay.
just easier for security. If you have one point of entry, you can have one individual monitor it, maybe use your staff in a more conducive way.
Sure.
I mean, it's really, I have no objections. I'd like to see the fencing, but I'll leave that up to the committee.
Alderman Stoyer, anything else?
Actually, I lean that way too, if that's not an issue for you folks,
Mhm.
but, it can be done fairly quickly,
Mhm.
and I think that would just help.
Sure. So, yeah, I think we can commit to looking into some sort of fencing containment.
Temporary,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
okay.
Alderman Dwayne, and then Alderman Zimmer.
I personally am okay with no fencing. This happens all the time on Broadway with Farmers Market. But I would like to ask Alderman Guy Zima if his take and his blessing.
Alderman Zimmer?
Thank you very much. I just want to bring up the double standard that seems to exist. You know, I hear, we're concerned about fencing with the other property, and they are going to have fencing, and here they don't particularly want it. I know when you have a big event every Wednesday, and it's wide open for everybody, how can you even with a straight face say, well, you can't have it without a fence? I don't know, I think you can't have it both ways. You either got to live with the standard to let people have events. I think it's fine that we ask them to notify if they're going to have outside events and all that sort of thing, and that they control their sound and everything else, and the police always look into that if there's complaints or something, but I just don't see how you can even ask a restriction of any of them there. I mean, suppose the idea of fencing is so that, well, minors can't get in, they can't pass off beer and all this sort of thing. But of course, every Wednesday, that's not a problem in the city of Green Bay. Okay, if it's not a problem, then I don't think we should have a problem with any of the taverns that want to do these kind of events outside. I think this double standard has to come to a halt. I think it's time to really revise the whole thing.
Thank you, Alderman Zimmer.
If I could just
Attorney?
explain a
Just
little
clarify
bit more.
the-
The special event actually has police at that event, so they're monitoring it. They're actually at both ends for people coming in and out. So I think that's a little bit of the difference between a special event like the farmers market and just an individual establishment having some type of outdoor area. So again, the fencing, I'll leave it up to the committee.
Fair enough. Alderman Strack?
Okay, I appreciate Alderman Zimmer's comments. But you know, like I said, we've had many different events come to this committee, and there's times where it behooves that we do have some kind of fencing up. Now, I think just the geographic location of this place, and you said that you have enough folks on board. There's many times where these events at these establishments might have 1 or 2 people watching. You said you have a staff of up to 20, so I'm thinking that makes me feel comfortable in that sense. So with that being said, I would go with that.
Yeah, some additional considerations that might help as well as the tent itself that we're going to be putting on the parking lot is going to be bordered with service areas as well as a band stage. So it's going to be relatively contained just by the logistics of the service areas of food and beverage and the bands themselves as well. So I think just inherently there's going to be a lot of containment within that tent area itself, as well as some porta potties along one side of it as well. So I think there's going to be a relative amount of containment inherently, and then with the staffing should be well contained and manageable.
Well, I guess.
With that being said, I'd make a motion to accept.
All right. Motion by Alderman Stoyer
Second.
to approve as presented, not needing an enclosure.
Mhm.
Second by Alderman Dwayne, under
just-
discussion.
Just,
Me?
Yep.
Your take on it?
do you have any concerns?
I don't. The staff of 20 or up to 20, as you mentioned, I think you can adequately police a 60 by 90 tent. You know, I think fences, you know, with those tents, they have those tents that have the plastic walls. Even if you can get maybe 1 or 2 sides of that, that's going to help. It's going to be a very little difficult to police if people walk out, because the officer's going to have a difficult time knowing where that alcohol came from. But with up to 20 people, I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
All right.
A motion.
I would probably suggest that you do look into something, because if there are problems, it could affect future events, and we wouldn't want that. We just had one who got a nice detailed plan and everything's fenced off, so that is our ordinance really, is that he'd be fenced off. And I'm fine if, that sounds like the alderman of the area and police and attorneys are okay with you because of your staff, so.
Sure. And I think our clientele isn't the type, but I understand the concerns as well, and we'll certainly take precautions and measures to make sure that it's contained and that it's within the outline of our footprint there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 12 is a request by the owner of Cool Hand Roots, 1238 State Street, to hold an outdoor event July 25th.
Again, kind of the same thing here. We have no objections to the event. We just like to hear some more information on some of the details we just talked about. and security fencing, the hours that it's going to go, if alcohol is going to be served in that extended area, and then if any outdoor music is going to be played.
Anyone here for
Motion.
Cool Hand Loops?
Make a motion, open the floor.
Oh, thank you,
Second.
Alderman Stark. Motion by Alderman Stark, seconded by Alderman Dwayne. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Anyone here for number 12? Cool Hand Lukes? Cool Hand Lukes. Well, and their event is after our next council meeting, but before the next one, so.
Maybe what I suggest is just forwarding this without recommendation. We should really hear from them. In the meantime, I will reach out to them and see if we can get some of those details locked down, and I will report that back to council.
That's fair enough. Anyone else want to speak on this topic? All right, without objection, we'll return back up here. What are your wishes?
Motion to move to the council without any recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Starr to move this to council without recommendation and have our attorney contact the applicant and fill us in on more information to handle it at council. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now we jump to number 17. Request by Alderman Stoyer, considering the Tavern League has spent much money nationally to ensure patrons have a safe ride home, that placard or sticker be placed in the interior of said patron's vehicle so that tickets or other repercussive measures do not occur. Alderman Stoyer.
Thank you, Chair. Several weeks back, I was at an establishment where I was talking to the owner, and remember his name offhand?
Ladd.
Ladd. I don't remember Ladd's last name. He works at Jill's, owns Jill's. He mentioned that a citizen had probably had a little too much. They got in their vehicle and to move it across the street, and they were ticketed for an OWI. That's just an example, poor luck, whatever. This is not to encourage drinking in any way, but the thought that we had was that the Brown County Tavern League already has a program in place where folks that have had too much will get a ride home. But what happens at times, depending on the day of the week or the location that the car is parked at, that they could be ticketed or towed away. So the thought that I had, after conversing with him and a few others, was what about having a placard or a sticker, something that you could put inside of the car that would give that owner a day or less, depending, but the next day to get that car moved. You know, I hear both sides of this issue. You know, I've heard both, and I'm saying that if you let that person drive home, there's always a chance of injury, death, property damage. So with that being said, I'm just looking at this as maybe a proactive measure by which we could have a placard put inside of the vehicle, just telling the police and other agencies that this vehicle will be moved the following day. That's really about it. So,
Anyone here for this item? Anyone here for? All right. I'll open the floor without any objections. Okay. Come up and state your name and address, please.
Steve Bernier, Director of Public Works, City of Green Bay, Wisconsin, 100 North Jefferson Street. Department of Public Works would not be in support of any measure like this because of the problems inherent with administering such a program and the reasons for the ordinance in the first place. We have revisited this type of, for various reasons, the same type of an ordinance modification numerous times in the past. I have with me documentation from Traffic Commission and Improvement Service Committee no less than 15 times since 2001 that parking on street has been addressed. And again, the reasons for the prohibition have been well discussed, well vetted, and brought forward in front of the Common Council through commission or committee over the past 15 years. Again, some of those reasons include our ability to plow streets during the winter and street sweep during the summer months. Those are mandatory activities that are forced upon us by the Department of Natural Resources so we can maintain compliance with our municipal storm sewer requirements and our discharge permit. If cars are parked on the streets, we can't sweep the streets out to the curb. That easy. Police department has been a supporter of these prohibitions because of the ability to identify vehicles not associated with where they're parked, stolen or abandoned vehicles that are left at the curbside, identification of parking deficiencies in commercial areas like multifamily houses that don't have enough on-premises parking, and folks are parking in the street. This has been the elimination of visual clutter on streets. It's a quality of life issue that all the persons have brought back to our department that we're trying to maintain. It eliminates the ability for this program to grow and also include long-term storage on street of trailers, boats, recreational vehicles, things of that nature. And we do believe that for the issue that you're trying to resolve, there are sufficient alternatives in place. Most of these establishments do have off-street parking. So rather than having a voucher system where a placard could be placed in the car allowing it to remain on street, have the establishment move the patron's vehicle to an off-street parking location, such as a surface lot associated with the establishment, or in a downtown area, have the folks park in the ramps. So we believe that there are sufficient other alternate mechanisms, that on-street parking itself is not something we should be considering for this purpose, and it would definitely create a hardship on the Department of Public Works through the traffic division, or parking division, in the enforcement of this program.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director? Alderman
Well,
Stark?
Director, I appreciate your comments, and the thing with snow plowing and leaf removal, all that type of thing, that's very important. I do understand that. I think in a perfect world, if we could, if we could have the vehicles moved to the parking lot, I think that would be the optimum. There's always some cases that may not fall within that, but I think I would be very happy with that as well, if there was a way that that vehicle could be moved by someone, possibly in the bar, off the street, inside, or inside that parking lot. I'd be all right with that as well. I realize that this topic was going to open up a number of things, and I understand that, but the intent that I have is that, to be proactive here, to look at possibilities or situations that folks who are in trouble that way, having too much, have an opportunity to have their vehicle at least out of harm's way. If that means bringing it to a parking lot, that's fine. Somebody in the bar could do that. But I do understand the issue with plowing and leaf pickup and garbage pickup and things in that order. I do understand that. So that would be definitely something that would temper some of the thoughts that I had initially. But other than that would be the only thing at this time that would temper that. So I still feel that the Brown County Tavern League, has a fairly nice program of rides. They have quite a bit of money that they.
Alderman Stark, any questions for Director?
Oh no, that was it. I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
More or less
Thoughts
just.
are good. I just wanted to.
All right, I'm expounding a little bit, but anyway, I
Your speech is
appreciate
later. Your speech is
yeah.
at 7.
You have to convince your
Sorry.
fellows. not have-
Hey, Alderman,
I have questions.
Yes, go ahead.
The parking ramp, if someone uses the parking ramp and they come back the next day, how does that work? Do they pay, if they come back the next day, say 11 a.m., they can just drive their car out, or?
It depends on the day.
Okay,
Currently, the way things sit today, nights and weekends, until staff comes on in the morning,
yeah,
are without charge. So if it was a Friday night and somebody came back on Saturday, because we're not staffing the ramps on the weekends, that would be at no charge. If somebody instead were to, say on a Tuesday night, come back on a Wednesday morning, the presumption would be that they came in at some point during the night after the previous shift had finished, and I believe they would be charged from the beginning of the day up until the time that they had left. Similar to a lost ticket, a lost spitter ticket.
ticket, yeah, so like
Right.
7 to
Well,
11.
max charge, I believe, right now is $6.75 a day for all-day parking in the ramp. So the maximum charge somebody could be for one day would be $6.75, I believe.
Okay.
any other questions, Alderman?
Well, basically I wanted to, would it be possible to, say, take the top floor and make that sort of, shall we say, a zone where people could park if they had that I mean, we don't wanna fill up the other parts of the parking lot, perhaps. But if the tavern gave someone a tab, instead of a ticket for the parking ticket, you know, that tells you when you came in and out, if they had that to show, that they would then they could use that in lieu of a parking ticket.
There's a variety of different things that could be considered. And one of the things that we are concerned with, especially with the ramps, is as development continues to occur throughout the downtown area, we are seeing more and more demand being placed on our parking facilities. And it's going to come to a point, probably within the next 5 years, where we're going to start having to think about additional facilities to service the downtown area, especially if the rate of expansion in the downtown continues as we've seen over the past several years. With that in mind, I think it would be possible to have some sort of a program, but there would be a cost associated with that program.
Yeah,
And we would be looking potentially for the Tavern League to help underwrite some of those costs, at least to help defray some of that, because a parking stall that's either not being paid for or being paid for at a discounted rate is obviously taking revenue out of that parking system. And right now, the parking division is trying to be just self-sufficient. We don't make money on parking in the downtown. But yeah, are there possibilities? Absolutely. Are we open to them? Always willing to talk about something.
Good for questions.
Any other questions for Director Alderman Dwayne?
I'm just curious, Steve, are there any other communities that offer this type of method to keep people from driving under the influence?
We've not heard of it, but that's not to say they're out there.
Okay. Again, are there any other municipalities that allow overnight parking throughout the city?
Not sure exactly what all the neighboring municipalities do. I do know that the city of De Pere maintains the same restrictions that we do.
Okay. Milwaukee, do you know anything about?
Milwaukee and some of the larger cities, that's something that we had done some research into. And those cities were designed more so without automobiles in mind. Now, we do have some older parts of the city where the streets are narrower, but not where we have the population density like some of those other municipalities where even with this situation notwithstanding, they already have issues with trying to keep enough vehicles for the residents in those high-density areas. So Milwaukee's, your Chicago's, the larger cities like that, they have parking issues regardless of this issue, and they struggle with that. Sometimes, some of those municipalities have even and odd days on the calendar. Some of them allow on-street parking based on your address number. Even numbered houses get to park on the street this day, odd numbered houses get to park. For as many different municipalities that struggle with this issue, there are that many different approaches.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Anyone else here for this item? Alderman Ent?
I wonder if I could ask Steve a question before he leaves. My understanding is that with the overnight parking ordinance, that within certain conditions, a resident can call and get an exception within limits, right?
That's limited to residential properties only. But yes, there are up to 6 occurrences per year. Each occurrence can last up to 2 weeks where a residentially zoned property can apply for an exemption for on-street parking.
Okay. Doesn't apply to commercial areas.
That is correct.
Okay. I was going to suggest that, what would stop a tavern owner if he has a customer in that situation from calling in and asking for the same exemption?
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Alderman Dwayne, did you have a question for the Director?
Would that be a communication we could put in as far as having commercial properties, have the ability to have a customer, patron call in?
Absolutely.
And I would
Okay.
then tie it to the vehicle, not the parcel.
For the vehicle.
And then it would be the person, not the.
All right. Any other questions from the Director?
I guess.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Crystal Osmond, 827 South Irwin Avenue, and I'm here as Program Manager for Downtown Green Bay. Our organization hasn't taken any sort of official position on it, but we would just be concerned about the potential impact on special events. As you know, we have the Saturday Farmers Market, and that's over the course of 22 to 23 Saturdays throughout the year. And at this point in time, we completely close the streets for those events. And we do unfortunately have to tow sometimes, and it is not something that we enjoy doing, but it is something that we do have to do in order to make the events work. So that is one thing that I would want to understand, or that our organization would want the Protection and Welfare Committee to kind of take into consideration as to how this could potentially impact that event. Not only that one, but Art Street. And I know Broadway isn't here, but they have their event as well, and I know that's later in the day, but you know, there's just some possible concerns with some of those things.
Questions for Ms. Osmond?
Hi, Crystal, thank you. Now, you close the streets off for those farmers markets, I understand that, and that's a right of way. But if you have an adjoining parking lot, you know, you want to close those. Cars could park in the parking lots, not so much on the streets. You're just saying if they were
Yep.
parked on the street, you would
Just
have an
in-
issue with that, the person could not get their vehicle off the street.
Right, the surrounding properties that are surface parking lots are for the most part private, except for the ramps and some of those sorts of things, so that would be based on.
But are there
Those are-
situations where you've blocked off streets where there have been people parked in lots where they could not get their vehicle out for any
Yes, if
reason?
anybody parks in the Riverwalk lot on a Sat, or overnight for the market, the Riverwalk lot gets completely closed.
Do people know about that in advance, that no
Yeah,
parking?
it's all signed.
Okay.
It's signed, and we also hood all the meters, and it's been something that we've been working on, educating individuals on that, so that we don't have to tow their vehicles, because it's not something we like to do, definitely.
All right, that's good, thank
Any
you.
other questions?
No problem.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else here for this item? Name and address, please.
I don't want to use my time up because I'm really here for another item. But
There's no
my name
other-
is Ray Salter, and I'm at 106 South Broadway. And I guess I just would ask Mark, in other words, the way you put this thing, in order for me to leave my car, if I was so intoxicated, I would have to get a ride home through the Tavern League in order to get this card. I couldn't just call my buddy up to take me home.
No,
I'm just
no,
asking, I mean,
no,
you know, I think you have a lot of thought on this thing.
No, exactly.
And as Steve said, you know, the cars would be getting in the way, so are we gonna have more cars? I mean, right now, there's cars that are in the street and they're in the way and they go around them, but instead of having 10 cars a night, are we now looking at 50 cars a night? I think you need to have a lot of thought into this thing.
Well, no,
before-
and I,
That's it.
well, hold on, Ray, stay there.
Go ahead.
That was one of the things that, you know, there's a lot of discussion that comes in with something like this. And I think the fact that you have friends that could drive you home, that's great. I mean, there's other alternatives to getting home. You know, if my son goes out and he'll call me, Dad, I need a ride, I'll do that, you know. So we need that support system there to help
Right, I
folks
understand
out.
it, but I'm just saying, that car would get ticketed and towed because a friend drove him home versus at the Tavern he takes me home, my car's okay.
Well, I think, you know, like I said, this is a discussion. Once Director Grenier brought up the fact about parking in the streets, you know, the problems that come up with that, and we have looked at this over time, I'm willing to back up on that and look at possibly looking at off-street lots or something that would get them off the streets. I understand that. So, and I know with farmers markets, you close streets as well. So I don't want to be obstructionist by any means in this. You know, I'm just looking at this as a proactive means of taking care of somebody that needs some help. The Tavern League does help quite a bit. But like I said, there are people that will say, hey, I'm okay, I can drive. So, and that's their opinion, but there's always that issue. So I'm definitely willing to backtrack and say that, you know, if we can park in lots or away off the streets, I'm all for that, so.
And understand, I'm not taking a position one way or the other.
Right.
I think you need to have more thought. You know, there could be lots of scenarios that come up, and,
Right.
you know, I'd be one of those guys, and I've never been in that situation before, and I hope at my age I don't get into that situation, but, I mean, it's almost a double standard. If the Tavern League gives me a ride home, his car's okay, but if my buddy gives me a ride home, I'm gonna get a ticket.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a slippery slope you're going down there, and so that's all. And so
Valid points.
I'm gonna sit down so we get to it.
Well, good.
Appreciate it, Mr.
Appreciate
Salter.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here for this item? Anyone else? All right, without objection, we'll return up here. Alderman Zima? Alderman Zima, then Alderman Wisbisky. Go ahead, Alderman Zima.
Well, first of all, I don't know, I feel ridiculous saying this to a committee all the time, but it's really up to you to decide what ordinances you want to have for your city. It's not up to the staff. you get staff input if you ask for it, or if you volunteer it. But you're the guys that make the decisions. So you don't look to them to tell you what to do. You have your ideas and you discuss it. You make the final decisions. That's what you're here for. You're the policymakers, as always. So I always feel a bit uncomfortable when aldermen somehow feel like, well, they have to kowtow to what staff says. Staff is there to advise, and with their experience, they help broaden your argument, but it's you in the end that makes those decisions. And, you know, I've heard these boilerplate arguments.
Any particular comments on the item? Because I agree
Yeah,
with you.
I am on this.
All right. Well,
I've heard the boilerplate arguments for as long as I've been here.
any particular
a long
comments
time.
on the subject?
Well, what I'm saying is that Mr. Stoyer is talking about individual type situation that can come up often again. Not near as often as people have to call to request to park overnight because they got company from out of town or something like that. And so I think, you know, you have to look at this as the greater good thing. Is you got to make a judgment. Is this something that is going to be beneficial? I mean, they go around cars for street sweeping or whatever it is on occasion. I mean, of course, in a perfect world, you have all that. But some communities have overnight parking year-round. Some have it just in the summertime. Some communities just say, well, you got to be off the street one day of the week, and another side of the street another day of the week, so they can do their cleaning, etc. But if you think this is an important thing, and I think it has a lot of merit, what Mark is saying, I think, you know, this is one of those things that could easily fit into the exception rule that we already have in place for a lot less serious reason than this. This is about, hey, life and death. You want people risking other people's lives as well as their own. And if this is a way you try as a last resort or something, I think it's worth listening to. So I applaud Mark for coming up with it, and I think it's open to would be. I think I could support that kind of situation, and I don't think it should have anything to do with the Tavern League one way or the other. If the Tavern League helped choose to participate like that and help, that's fine. But I think, I don't know how often it would take place, but I don't see that as a big burden to the city. We always hear that the Public Works wants to clean everything and the police department doesn't want anybody on the street. But, you know, different communities deal with it in different ways, and it's up to you folks to make the policy decisions, and I think this is really a small exception that I think is a very good one.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Zima. Alderman Wisbisky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will the buses run all night long, or are they restricted hours?
They stop at 10.
They stop at 10?
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I would like to compliment our Director of DPW for bringing up some good, valid, considerable items. And I think he brought up some really tremendous input. And I don't think he was the least bit threatening. He wasn't threatening me as a council member. And I think that he brought up some good, discussable things that should be thought of.
Appreciate it. All right, anyone else on this item? Anyone else? All right, without objection, we turn back up here. And what are your wishes?
Well,
Wanna
right.
start your item? What would you like?
Well, like I said, and I, just what Alderman Wisbisky said, and also Alderman Zima, very valid points all the way around. I kind of knew that this topic would open up some discussion, so I don't know if I'm comfortable right at this moment to say, hey, slam dunk, we gotta do this. I feel that the discussion has started. I feel that maybe just a little bit more work needs to go into it, just to make sure that both sides, all parties are satisfied. I'm willing to do that, so I'm willing to do further study on this.
Did you want this received and placed on file and bring it
Yes.
back when you're ready?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Motion by Alderman Stoyer to receive and place on file. Is there a second to that?
Why don't you
I'll
hold it up?
second.
Why don't you hold it up till you're done thinking about it?
Thank you, Alderman Zima. That was my other comment or question is, would you rather us hold it and bring it back when you're ready, or just file it?
Well,
and
let's
bring
do
it back?
this. We've got another meeting next month. I would hold it up for our next P&W meeting.
Fair enough.
I'll make that motion.
Changing your motion to hold this till the next
Yes.
P&W meeting.
And we will have more information. and
Second
then
by Alderman Dwayne, under
Discussion.
discussion. Alderman Dwayne?
I agree with Crystal on this. I think the farmer's market is very important to this community. Maybe if we can explore just eliminating that area and try this out, as Alderman Zima said, I'd rather see somebody park their car in the street than a law enforcement and our emergency response teams having to go to a call for a intoxicated individual. So I applaud Alderman Stoyer on bringing this up, and I think we need full city council discussion on this. That's it.
Alderman Scannell?
Well, I would like to see where, and perhaps the ramp, the top tier of the ramp, could be used as a zone for people to park. If you're going to come downtown and go to the bars, park at the top of the ramp. And they could perhaps get a sticker from the bars so that when they come back the next day, and I think we need to figure out when's a good, put a cap on that, when they need to come back, they can use that sticker in lieu of a parking ticket, and they will not be penalized for over imbibing but being wise enough to not drive. I think if we can create a zone, and maybe the ramp isn't the best place, I'm thinking the top tier of the ramp might be a good possibility. I'm open to discussing other possibilities, but I think if we can create a zone that it gets cars off the streets, and it's in an area where no one's going to get parked in, or going to get it's going to get blocked in because of any activities that are going on, for the most part, the Cherry Street ramp. I think that's the way to go with this, because I think it'd be, I believe the concern of cars left on the street overnight and who knows how long into the day, even through the morning, I think that's a real valid concern for Public Works. And I would like to come up with a solution that takes that into account. And I think this is a path that might do that. As far as the west side of the river, perhaps it could be I don't know if there's really an issue at all. People could park by the Fort Howard. That's off. I believe that's metered, but that would be on Fridays and Saturdays. That would be an issue. So I don't know if it's really a concern on the west side as it is on the east side.
I think those are good ideas for the downtown area. Most of our taverns are, of course, outside of downtown, but those are good ideas. Anything else, Alderman Scannell?
I would like to see if we got direction. So if we're going to hold this up, I would like to get information on that directive, and I think that would make a big help me make my decision on this.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Strayer.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you can see just here, Alderman Dwayne and Alderman Scannell both bringing up different ideas. Listen to Director Grenier, listening to Alderman Zima, Alderman Wisbisky. Like I said, you can throw this out to 40 people and they'll have 40 different opinions. So with that being said, I think there's part of me that wants to make a decision tonight, but I think after hearing the folks speak, I would feel very comfortable with delaying this for another month. I don't think the world's going to change a whole lot, and bringing in all these points. And I would ask the community at large to answer and come and help us with this as well. Just the fact that we're discussing it up here and we're not coming up with a solid decision doesn't mean that we're waffling on it. I just think that we need another month to really take care of this. Is that a good word? Well,
Appreciate it, Alderman Strayer.
so that's it.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of merit. Let's bring back some actionable points that we
Right.
can actually discuss and possibly move
This
forward.
is for discussion. I really just wanted to get the discussion going, and
All right.
it definitely got going. So that's it.
Those in favor of holding this till the next meeting?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 18, request by staff to review with possible action the proposed ordinance relating to mobile food establishments, food trucks. We've heard back from June 16th council meeting. Prior to that, I think we had it at our committee for a month or two, so no stranger to this item. Why don't we start with, did you have comment first? You had your hand up.
Yes.
All right, let's start with staff.
I just wanted to point out a couple things, and I see our Parks Director, Donnie Kramer's here tonight. After reviewing this, Parks had some things that they wanted added to it. So I do want to point out things, just minor things that have changed from the last revision you saw to the one that's in the packet. If you go to section 7C, the zoning restrictions. Sorry, it's 7C. Yeah, we can find it. I'll essentially just give a summation of what it is. C5 indicates that we've included an exemption, a 500-foot prohibition around Bay Beach. That's a concern that Parks Department had. Bay Beach, and then any fair, festival, special event, or civic event that is licensed or sanctioned by the city of Green Bay, unless obviously the individual has permission from the city of Green Bay. The other concern that, and it's not in this draft, that Director Kramer wanted us to address was in the 150-foot prohibition that's around businesses. She also wanted to add to that city parks that sell concessions. I think there's a concern out there that, your little league teams and leagues that raise money through concessions would lose out if food trucks were there. And that probably will be taken care of by the prohibition in residential zoning. But I just would throw it in there just in case we have a park that may have some commercial zoning around it or something like that. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but
Whitney Park.
there you go. Better safe than sorry.
All right.
So those are the only 2 points I had.
Thank you. Alderman Duane?
Yeah, I have a question for the attorney.
Sure.
As far as health department, how are they gonna deal with this? How often are they gonna inspect these trucks, these food trucks?
Yeah, it's kind of up to their protocols. I think there are some, I don't know what their internal protocols are, but there are certain, if you have a certain amount of vehicles or a certain event that kicks into when you have to notify the health department. So I'd really leave it up to them just to kind of regulate it like they would do with a restaurant or something like that.
Okay.
So it's kind of,
If I could, I think it even states under 2B, all mobile food establishments used for vending food shall be licensed for use by the Brown County Health Department.
initially, and then if you're gonna have an event,
Okay.
it's over like 5 vehicles, then they have to look at it again, so. Yep. But the initial one will be a review, just like a restaurant would get reviewed.
Okay. And I have a question for Captain. As far as in the downtown district, this is gonna stay open, the vendors are gonna be open till 3 a.m. You don't feel that there's gonna be more calls for service with intoxicated individuals?
Well, I think our concern from the police department perspective is just pedestrian traffic. If they could, we don't want the cars stopping in the middle of the road and then everybody congregating, because that's asking for problems. There has to be, they have to park illegally in order for to do that, to conduct that business, so that we don't have pedestrians darting in traffic and causing problems for officers and other people.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Duane. Any other questions from, as we can open up the floor? I think there's some people here. All right.
Motion to open the floor.
Motion by Alderman Steuer, second by Alderman Scannell, to open the floor. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Anyone here for this item, number 18, the food truck ordinance? Just step on up and give us your name and address. And
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Stange. It's 240 North Broadway. When the attorney was explaining part of this ordinance, one thing that really caught me is, why is it that Bay Beach Park would have a 250-foot restriction, 500-foot, and you would do 150-foot around businesses with brick and mortar? What is the difference in that?
That was what was requested by Parks. Certainly that can change if the committee feels.
Well, it just didn't seem to make much sense that you do. I can understand wanting to protect Bay Beach Park concessions, but you would want to do the same thing with brick and mortar. I'd like to see a much broader coverage further apart. If you're going to put food trucks out there and compete against my brick and mortar business, I'd like to see them further away. 250, 300, 500 feet. I'd be happy with a quarter mile. I'm not real happy about the food truck business. It does cut into restaurant business. They are not covered as well with the health department as brick and mortar because they're not in a location long enough to get inspected. And the health department is short on staff. We pay a sizable fee every year, license fee to the health department to come and inspect our facilities. I don't know what the food trucks pay. I thought it was somewhere in the $500 range, but nevertheless, that permit that we get, the license we get, is only good for our establishment. If we would like to go to participate in a farmer's market or another event, because we're brick and mortar, we have to get another license, which I always thought was somewhat unfair, being as how that you're already licensed, but they want additional money for another permit. But that's my general concerns right there. I'm against the whole thing, and it seems like it's kind of a done deal the way it came across originally when it was presented. There weren't a lot of people that were down here to talk about it. I don't think anybody, according to what I read in the paper. But think about the restrictions on how close, if you're going to do it, make sure that it's a ways away. That's all I have. Thank you much.
Mr. Stink, what is your establishment on Broadway?
Oh, it's the Bangkok Garden.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Stinky? Go ahead, Alderman.
Thank you, Mike, for coming in, and I enjoy your establishment.
Thank you.
The question I had was, because we've talked about the setbacks on this, anything from 50 to 150 to, talking to 500 feet now. When you look at the downtown area, a lot of the frontages on some of these businesses are 50 feet, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. So I'm just saying, if you put just for example, even a 150-foot setback, I guess the bottom line for me is, do you have a concern? Because I look at setbacks. You could put a 150-foot setback around all of these establishments, and you might have a map, and you might have like two little areas that you could go into.
Certainly.
And to tell you the truth, I mean we've dealt with this with other ordinances, especially like sex offender ordinance, where you have setbacks, etc. I would like to. Do you feel that you're not in favor of this, obviously, at all?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. The food trucks serve a purpose, but I don't think generally on our streets they're a good thing. If you want to do them for a special event, I think they're great for special events. They're mobile. They get the product to where the customers are at. But to put them on the street and compete against the general businesses, I just don't agree with that. And I'm not sure why we would even want it, how you can justify it.
Well, I know they have the food days at the museum, food truck days, and that seems to be a very popular event. So,
and events like that, Mark, I think are just great. But I think that just generally, say you get a license and you can set up within 150 feet of a brick and mortar establishment. It just doesn't.
And we've heard comments about that. They could be fly-by-night type vehicles and problems and such. A lot of these food trucks are maintained quite well, I believe. I mean, it's a business, and I understand your concern about your business having. Let's say you want to have a food truck. You're a brick and mortar business. I can see that side very well, that you could have one of those and go to other events as well. Those are other things that we have to look at as a committee or talk to staff about and try to understand that, maybe there is something that could be changed along that line. Because I agree that you should have that opportunity and not have to be penalized for that.
Well, not even with just a food truck, but even if we wanted to do a special event with a tent, you have to get a license. But
okay. But anyway, that was just it. I just wanted to know if you seem to be against this, but if we've looked at 50 foot, we've looked at 150 foot, now we're looking at 500 foot for certain areas. So that seems to be, you got the downtown area, of course. Alderman Dwayne's brought that up. There's certain specific areas. Who's to say that you couldn't be in I-43 Business Park, where there are very few restaurants, and you could have food trucks out there where people from Aurora or different businesses out there, they have a short lunch hour. They don't have time to run downtown or wherever. So I think that there are opportunities to have food trucks in this community. I think it's just it kind of gets very pointed because you're talking about the downtown area, and there's a lot of brick and mortar places, and I do understand your concerns with that. But
don't we already have an ordinance to handle industrial areas going to businesses? Is there food trucks can go to a business and
I'm thinking on
set up for a 5 or 10 minute break time?
Until 9 o'clock, right?
Currently, food trucks, the way the ordinance reads right now, they can only be in a spot for 15 minutes, and they have to have their flashers on legally parked. So
But that covers your businesses right there. You know, if you want to go around to industry, you've already got that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
That's
sir.
it, that's,
Any other
thank you,
questions?
thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else for this item? Step up and give us your name and address and your thoughts.
My name is, again, is Ray Salter at 106 South Broadway. I'm not in favor of any food trucks other than maybe some industrial park ones. The one at the museum, Food Truck Friday, seems to be working out. I talked to Mayor Schmidt about it, and he seems to be in favor of having some kind of a food truck event in front of the library on Wednesdays or something. He indicated to me that he had no position on this general ordinance whatsoever. My question to, I don't know where this ordinance came from. I read the paper. Who started it? I mean, how many restaurants have been contacted? How many brick and mortar restaurants have been contacted and said, "What do you think about the food truck?" I mean, I was told that this thing was going on at 4 o'clock tonight. I contacted 5 restaurants in my area, and 4 of them are against it. So, I mean, if the restaurants are against this thing, why are you guys trying to shove this thing down our throat?
Appreciate it. Mr. Salter, just maybe as a brief history. we could
Sure,
get-
yeah, and I think I explained this at council, but I can certainly go over it again. This was originated by staff, all right, and it has been a concern for a while in that we don't have really good ordinances to deal with it. We talked about the 15-minute, but we were seeing were food trucks moving into our community, and we needed to set up some type of rules or regulations that address that. We've had cases where there's different types of food trucks that park on public property and they're allowed in public commercially zoned property, but there wasn't really a good understanding within our zoning of what's allowed, what's not allowed. So what we did then is, knowing that that was starting to happen, food trucks are getting very popular now. We were getting calls constantly from the food truck people. What we did is we had certain staffers look into kind of other municipalities' ordinances and put together kind of what they believe for their best practices to present to common council. And obviously the council can do with that what they like.
I remember one time, about 7 or 8 years ago, I came back from Florida, and in fact, Alderman Zima was the one. I come back from Florida. I own the building on the corner of Broadway and Walnut. And at the time, there was a Mexican restaurant in it. Right now, it's run by Red. I've had the Burger Company in there and various restaurants. We have a door in the corner, and we have a door that's about 100 feet down. There's a guy sitting right between our 2 doors, selling stuff out of a smoker. And so that's how there was, Mr. Zima somehow we got an ordinance in that he had to be within 150, couldn't be within 150 feet of an establishment at the time. But again, I'm just going to reiterate again, the gentleman that preceded me, you're going to try to protect Bay Beach concession stands by going to 500 feet, but you don't care about Mark's place or my place or Black Cat, White Dog. I mean, we're all trying to pay taxes, and in fact, we pay a lot of taxes. Men are doing it in about 2 weeks. But if a guy comes in next door to us in a building, puts in a restaurant, hey, that's my competition. But if a guy pulls up in a truck and starts selling stuff, and he's only going to be there during prime times of the day, I don't know. I think we need a lot of work on this thing.
Mr. Salter, do you mind taking a question?
Well, it's really not a question. I agree with Donnie, 500 feet from Bay Beach and also a certain amount of feet from any parks. But I do have a question.
Did you have any questions?
No,
for Mr.
no
Salter?
more questions.
Any other questions for Mr. Salter?
Not at this
No?
time.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Ron.
Alderman,
Do you have the
we're
hard?
kind of an open.
Okay.
Go ahead. Do you mind waiting until
I'll
we
wait.
get back? All right. Anyone else? Just give your name and address, just to keep it. Alderman Zima?
Was there someone else?
Right behind you, yeah.
Behind.
Fine.
Okay.
I can speak when the committee speaks. So.
My name is Taiwan Lee, and my wife and I, we are the one that's operating the Green Egg Roll Plus food truck around town here. And we've been doing this almost like about a year, since November last year, since we got our license through the state. And to answer some of your questions already, we've been going through like a lot of hassle with from cities to cities, and like here in Green Bay, Ashwaubenon, De Pere, like Bellevue, Alloway. Everybody's been giving us hassles, pushing us back and forth from one department to the next department, even here with Green Bay too. And one of the reasons for us doing like the food truck here is that one of the things that like with this gentleman about Bangkok Garden there, with the restaurant and with us as a food truck, we do operate as a food truck. We have respect for other businesses in the area, and we will not be pulling up into their front door or so next to them to do business. We are only there to do like other events or so, or other as a request, because we have some other business down here in the downtown area. They call us a request for us to come to do service for their business establishment within their employees. And sometimes when we go around this and go ask the city to see if we're able to do something there, and the city say no, because we don't have a permit or so to do something there. And like De Pere also turned us down, Ashwaubenon also turned us down, because why can't we do something if we call the establishment or call the city to get like a permission to do something there that we can't, but with other food truck or other organization, when they request it, they're able to pull up and they do it one day, and when the city found out, they're already done. But for us here, we're going the right way and asking the city for permission or what is the right way to do this, and everybody's been pushing us around, and then we have to call the establishment back up and say, no, we cannot do this because the city won't allow us to do this. Okay, so for that reason, for us as operating as a food truck, we know that yes, we've been did our research and study for other cities or so there too, to find out what is correctly or how to operate like a food truck with respect to other restaurants around the area too. And we understand that if we are within like a restaurant area or so, we have to be like within 100 feet or so. But if like a establishment asks us to come in and do service for the employees, then yes, sometimes we'll be parking in the parking lot, but the restaurant will be next door. So, but we're not serving their customer; we're serving that establishment only. Okay. So, with what we would like to do is that if you're able to open up this ordinance for us here, is that sometime if we need to go someplace that yes, we'll be able to do, but we're not going to be doing it as a food truck every day in one area, because for us being as mobile, we can go throughout town, and if an establishment call us, that we can go into their establishment and we can park in the street or in their parking lot to do something, and without having the city come after us say you can't serve food because you're not licensed or you don't have a permit with the cities.
Well, sounds like you're generally in favor then of having this ordinance to give
Yes.
us some freedom. Okay. Do
Yes,
you mind
we-
taking some questions, Mr. Lee? I think Alderman Stoyer,
Yes.
Alderman Dwayne.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Lee, Taiwan Lee.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lee, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming in, and you brought up some very good points. I was going to ask you this, and this will be a question that I would like to ask others as well, but, you know, and it depends too. A lot of the restaurants, especially in the downtown area, they may close at 10 or 11 or 12, depending. You know, but seems like most restaurants close by 10 or 11. The thought I had is that if we decided on food trucks to be allowed to come in here, they would only run after restaurants, the brick and mortar places are closed. So I'm going to ask, is that something that you would agree with? And I'll also propose that to other folks as well.
Well, from experience operating here in Green Bay, because we've been operating since November already, and one of our locations is that on Austin Grocery Store in South Webster there, and then also on the east side over by the Brown County Library in the parking lot there. We see that after about 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, the crowd died down already. So that's when we usually pack up and go. Because we're only good from like about lunchtime until 7 or 8 o'clock the latest only. And that's what mainly we're operating time is about that time only.
Well, I needed to hear that, so.
Right.
Thank
But we do, right now we're currently getting like a lot of requests because with on Broadway's establishment that on Food Truck Fridays, and they are requesting us to do something later in the day. And because with that Food Truck Friday, they only operate during the lunchtime hour. And for myself, and I'm putting together a group of food truck, and we're pulling together, and we like to do like a food truck night in the downtown area. And to serve some of those customers that they say they like to come down and try some of our food, because we have different kind of food besides some of the other restaurants there. And we are asking some of the restaurants there too if they like to participate too, but this is still in the planning.
I'm good.
Alderman Dwayne has a question too.
Thank you, Taiwan. With respect to all your business and others out there, and the bricks and mortars, how often do you get the health department check?
We get checked the same thing as like the restaurant. For the area here, they said they only come through like once a year for us here. But in each of the other cities that we go, or some of the other events that we go to, we pretty much get inspected each time for other event there. So we could be like inspected pretty much like 2 or 3 times a month if we go to some of the other event like a fair or other festival, and that we go through, and then the health department come through and inspect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else here for this item? Anyone from the public before I go to the Alderman? Yes, please. Name and address.
Ron Sidnicow, 1122 South Jackson, Green Bay. I just want you to remember that food trucks are a walkable food source. It's not something that people are typically going to drive to. The idea is that you have a food truck in an area where that you have walking traffic. I support, obviously, the food truck ordinance, especially since it was revised. I think you have to also remember that people typically, when they want to move downtown, they want to have a lot of options, and I think that is something that's going to help, or it's going to help people want to live downtown, want to work downtown. It's really something that's an attraction. When I think of a food truck, I think of it's probably operating, I don't know, not the entire 12 months out of the year. We don't have great weather to have a food truck in place 12 months a year. I do think the restriction is fair. I don't see a lot of other restaurants here opposing it, so that tells me that, you know, anytime you have something that's new, you're going to have people that oppose it, but I feel like if it was incredibly unfair, there would be a lot more people here to speak against it. So I have to leave. I wanted to say that I support it. I hope it goes through. We're the 3rd largest city in Wisconsin, and I'd love to see us act like it once in a while. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Anyone else here for this item?
Give my 2 cents real quick. Garrett Bader, 300 North Van Buren. I spend my life working on making the city a great place. I know many other people in the room here have that same sort of impact. And really, when you're trying to make a city a great place, it's a 3-legged stool. Great employment to make people want to be here. We've done a lot of that. Great housing, especially down there. We're getting there. The city has done wonderful things helping me in my project. And great events. This is a great event item. It's a quality of life. And if you want people like me, and quite frankly at this point even younger than me now, wanting to move back here, wanting to live, makes a great city, this is something we need to do. It's a big city thing. Many of us who live in the big cities came back and have done this. In fact, I was at karaoke last week at your place. I had lunch 2 weeks ago at your place. I still go to those places, but I also want to have this option. And to have more of us, that makes a great city. We got to do this. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Bader? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your name and address, please.
Okay. I'm saying my husband talking already, but he did not bring my point, so I got.
Can I just get your name?
Bachia, staying
Thank you.
Bangkok Garden, and these are my regular customers. But and this too. My question is, how much of the need for the truck to be by the museum? I'm there all the time. Nobody ever asks me if I agree to the truck. I mean, it's good to have the truck, but where is the city find the parking for them? Lunchtime, if all these people come and park my parking, where's my customer park?
You mean park in your lot and walk to the food trucks? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have signage that says, for...
Oh, yeah. So between Hinterland and between us on a Friday and Baycare, our customer cannot find the parking, especially on a Friday. So when I ask the city is, you guys have, or whoever that have
Well-
the have the truck, do they have designated parking for these people?
And I would probably steer away from that right now, only because we're talking about the ordinance and not particularly Food Truck Friday, which I think is a separate issue on its own that we're not covering today. We're talking about
But isn't the food truck that we're talking about?
the food truck ordinance, not the Food Truck Friday, which is an event. I
It's,
don't know if we can.
I would just direct, and I don't, the city doesn't sponsor that, I believe, I think it's, does Current sponsor Food Truck Friday? On Broadway. I would go to them, because they pull a permit and see what type of parking.
well, they get it through you guys, right? I mean,
Right.
I could, so.
But
you
off
know-
the top of my head, I don't know what that parking arrangement is, but you can certainly ask them for their application.
Yeah, my only concern is, you know.
The
if
valid
you can
concern,
have
but I don't
truck,
think
then-
it's really involved with this particular ordinance. I'm not saying it's not a good concern, but for our discussion today, I don't think it's part of it. But did you have any issues with the particular ordinance right now?
Okay. Well, at least you get hear from me. I mean, it's still related.
Okay,
Yeah.
certainly. Thank you. Anyone else on this item?
Steve Edges, 102 South Platten Street. First off, as far as the ordinance for the requirements for the truck, 10 foot is, for the height requirement, is a little low. Most vehicles used for it are right around 10 foot to start with. You add your hood vent to the top of that, you're about another 2 feet. I'd like to just see that opened up a little bit. And then the use of just food is a little vague. They can be selling potato chips, and we couldn't be within 150 feet of them. I'd like to see that maybe like a restaurant or facility that sells food or makes and prepares the food. I don't know about just like frozen pizzas even, because a lot of bars will offer just a frozen pizza, which really they're not a restaurant.
Any questions for Mr. Edges? Alderman Dwayne?
I think, as far as soda pop and potato chips, I think we do have enough gas stations around that can feed the people that are hungry with the munchies.
Yeah, but the way the ordinance states, you're not allowed to park within 150 feet of any of those buildings because they sell them.
He's talking about the definition of what food is, right?
Yeah, I'd like that to be changed to like restaurant or something like on that. Maybe
I
a
get what
little
you're
bit
getting
more
at.
in depth than restaurant, but if a bar is selling frozen pizzas, they're barely regulated as far as being a kitchen. They're a total different situation than a food truck or any other restaurant as far as that goes.
Any other questions for Mr. Edges? Alderman Scannell?
You said an extra, so do you think like 13 feet in height would be a good?
Yeah, because I believe the state standard is 13.5 or 13.6.
So maybe 14.
Because, no, you couldn't do that because you got to abide by the state laws. And I believe it's 13.5 feet because of the underpasses, and anything taller than that, you need a oversized load permit.
So 13.5.
Or 13,
Or
13.5. As long as you're, just stated, as long as you're within the state requirements.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. Alderman?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Edges, your business, are you involved with this?
I'm
type
not
business?
operational right now.
Is that something you're looking to do?
Correct.
All right. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here for this item? Anyone else? Before I go back to the second person, anyone here who hasn't spoken yet? You come up, and then we'll go back right on the end here. Right.
I just have one
Mr.
quick
Salter,
comment.
if you don't mind, I'm just going to.
Oh, I'm
We have
sorry.
one more. No, then we can
We'll get
research.
you in.
Thank you. My name's Bill Schleiss, 2509 Sheridan Drive, Green Bay. We run a restaurant in De Pere called Salt. We're going to be, thanks for your accepting our application for Vintage in downtown on Washington Street. I've attended meetings with you guys, and participated in discussion on this ordinance, and we believe it's correct to have this ordinance, and we support it. As a restaurant owner, we think the ordinance is written to protect us, and this is something to diversify, and it's something to have downtown. It's a good thing. I think it's we can have some fears of it. I agree with that. When you're paying for bricks and mortars, you want to have some protection, and we think that this ordinance is given it to us. So 150 feet from our door, we thought was okay. I don't know if there's very many places you're really going to be able to put it on Washington Street or Broadway. But if somebody can find a nice spot and follow the rules of the ordinance, it was written for the cleanliness, that they had to have, the food had to either be prepared in that facility, outside of their a licensed facility, and if they're going to be able to make it in their food truck, that food truck's a pretty expensive piece of equipment. You're probably going to pay anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 for that vehicle if it's going to be able to prepare food inside of it. So, like Garrett mentioned, he says, you go to the bigger cities, and these are quite prevalent. And like this gentleman was talking about, there's certain businesses that want him to come there for their lunch hour or whatever. There's a place for this, and I think we got to really give it a chance. So,
Thank you, Mr. Slice. We have a couple questions. Alderman Steuer.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, for coming in. And I appreciate your comments, being brick and mortar as well, and just saying you feel comfortable with this ordinance. Did you look at this before the setback was changed? I mean, we did talk about 50 foot at one time, but then the 150 foot, was there a certain number that you felt comfortable with that?
Yeah, we felt much better. We thought 50 wasn't sufficient. We felt much better at 150. We thought that was a good compromise.
Well, I think the point I brought up before was the fact that a lot of the restaurants and a lot of the businesses downtown have narrow frontage, so 150 foot will take a lot of them out. And I know we can't do it now. I would really like to see a map showing the 50 foot setback and then the 150 foot setback, and what would be allowed, where you could go. I think we're making a decision here just with thoughts of how that would look, but I'm just saying that physically I would like to see that. And I think that would be easy enough done in a GIS format, that we could get something like that. So I would be comfortable with looking at both the 50 foot and the 150 foot. I think those are the two. And the 500 foot would be a standalone pretty much, so I don't think there's a big issue with that. So anyway, I just wanted to reiterate what you said, that the 150 foot would be good for you. I'm leaning toward that as well, but I would still feel comfortable seeing that.
Thank you, Alderman Steuer. Alderman Dwayne.
Thank you.
What is your business?
We have two restaurants. We're going to have one downtown that we just talked about, the liquor license. It's a former Cafe Espresso.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then I have a restaurant in De Pere called Salt. Okay. And our chef is very creative, and he's very interested in some time in the future that we venture into our own food truck.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else here for this item? Anyone else? Let's see. Did you speak on this one yet? I think you did.
No.
No, you didn't. That was the previous
No.
one. All right.
Nope.
All yours.
Great. Crystal Osmond. Again, I'm with Downtown Green Bay, and again, our organization has not taken a formal position on this ordinance either, but we did have a lot of opportunity to get the word out to the businesses, at least within the downtown district and the Old Main Street district. We emailed them, we talked to quite a few of them. A number of them initially did have some concerns, and we were able to share some of those concerns with staff. They shared them directly with staff, and we had a couple meetings where things like the health department issue and exactly how they would be regulated came up, and we were informed that they would be regulated as much as a restaurant, and in some cases more so, as well as the 150-foot rule. Those were kind of two of the bigger issues that came up. And after moving forward, of course, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of those businesses, but a number of them, once those compromises came forward, I think if they were here, they might show that they were a little more comfortable with how things were moving forward. Bill was one of those individuals as well. And again, we just wanted to also share that, you know, we've seen this used as an economic development tool in other communities. In some cases, this is an opportunity for an entrepreneur to find a lower cost way to enter a market, and hopefully, you know, at one point in time they might be able to open that brick and mortar restaurant, but this might be a little lower cost option for them to get their feet under the ground and see if it's something that they can really support long term. It's also something that can introduce new concepts to our community in terms of food, that it's a little less risk. They can change up their menu a little quicker and change some of the things that they're doing. So we wanted to share some of those comments, more so for information, but and to if there are any questions.
Do you mind taking a question from Alderman Dwayne and Alderman Strayer?
Thank you, Crystal. You do good work for the downtown. So my question is, do you have any ideas on where these trucks will be placed? Do you have permission from certain businesses to put it in locations?
I think the setback issue, when it was 50 feet, it was concerning for some businesses. The 150-foot compromise seemed to help alleviate some of that. And as somebody pointed out, it seemed as though Washington and Broadway would probably be a little more off-limit in some areas. I don't think I can speak to that question specifically in terms of permissions, but we, as an organization that does events, we've seen a lot of success with it at our Summer in the Park event over at Whitney Park. We have 3 food trucks that come, and people have received that really well, and they enjoy it, and it's a nice addition to what we're doing.
Thank you.
Alderman Strayer?
Okay, thanks, Crystal. With the businesses that you did talk to, what was the percentage, or if you would, can you? I don't want to put you on the spot because I know you have, you're working with businesses and that, but I'm saying if you're out there speaking and finding out, yes, we'd like this, no, we don't like that.
Right.
Can you just give the committee a sense, just a sense as far as what the percentage were for something like this and the percentage that were against? Without, you don't have to get overly specific. Was there an overwhelming push against this?
We didn't really do any sort of formal surveying or anything like that. I would feel a little uncomfortable speaking to any sort of percentage or anything like that. We did hear some for, we did hear some against, and then we worked through some of the concerns. There was more comfort with what was being proposed.
It just seems that, after you mentioned the 150-foot setback, it just sounded like that the folks that you have talked to were a little more comfortable, with that. So, okay, that's what I have for now.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Jerry?
Alderman Wisbicki, do you mind if we take the public comment first, and then we'll, unless you
I
have
would just like to add to what Crystal just
all right, go ahead, please.
I was actually with a couple of aldermen at that meeting where we had a round table about the trucks, and we, in fact, one afternoon we spent almost 3 hours, and we had a cross section of the folks that she said she had contacted. We're at this meeting, and that's where a lot of these factual informations and requirements came up that are in this ordinance, and everybody was in full agreement. We had both sides of the fence. We had food truck operators, we had business operators, and as she said, all the business operators down there were notified, and so we had, I felt we probably had a pretty good percentage of people at that particular meeting where we spent one afternoon going over the whole thing, just trying to make sure that where we're at right now maybe will be softened a little bit, but things don't always happen that way. But I will assure you that we did. I thought we had a great discussion on that, and the lawyer was there, everybody was there. So.
Thanks, Alderman. Good insight. Did you mind taking a question from Alderman Dwayne?
No.
Okay.
Thanks, Alderman Wisbicki. Nice shirt.
Well, thank you.
Could you show the public here?
He's going to model this.
No.
For those at home, it's the Sea Dragon shirt.
He's not saying you're a Sea Dragon.
So let me add, Tim, you have good taste.
I'm going to get
Little
one.
known fact that's
Where
his
can I get
nickname.
one?
That's his nickname as well.
Are they for sale?
Sea Dragon.
Oh, yes, they are.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway.
Did you have a
Is that
question?
it?
No, that was
There's Zip and Pippin t-shirts available on everything else. Too.
Okay.
Fox is upstairs. I'm kidding.
Jerry.
One more question, Alderman Strayer.
And that is a nice shirt. Anyway, are you comfortable with who you talked to on this and just looking at the ordinance as is, are you fairly comfortable with this?
Yes, I am. I think we've been through an awful, like I say, some really well worth meetings and inputs, and again, I have nothing but good to say about our staff. Our legal staff did their homework. This is not the first place in the universe where you have food trucks. They have them exclusively. One of the areas that always reminds me of is in California, and this is a little bit off the subject, but into the subject again. In Yorba Linda, for example, they have a food truck night, and no, it isn't on a Friday night. It's like on a Tuesday night. And it becomes a local gathering spot for all these trucks to meet in one particular spot. And I guess if I was going to add something, I'd like to find that spot, be it a parking lot or so many blocks somewhere, where you would head towards that direction someday. But that's not really here for the subject tonight, but I would like to add
That's
that.
good. Thank you, Jerry. That's
Fantastic.
Thanks, Alderman Wisniewski.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Yeah, I know a couple people had some second ones. First one up, Mr. Salter or Mr. Lee?
I guess
Quickest one.
my only comment would be that, I've listened to everybody, and I just feel that there's not enough communication. The reason there's not a lot of restaurant people up here is because, I had no idea this was going on tonight until I got a call from this one person, and that was at 2:30 this afternoon. Have any of you talked to any restaurants? Has the staff sent out a notice to every restaurant in the city to ask what our opinion is on this thing? Or have you walked, and even sending out notices? I'll give you a quick example. On Broadway, sometimes we'll call a meeting of all the businesses, and they email them, and they'll have a meeting, and 12 people show up, okay? 2 months later, I went to all the businesses and told them we're having a meeting. I had 27 people show up. Now, they weren't there to see my shirt. They were there because there was something going on. But if you don't let the restaurant people know what's going on, 4 o'clock's a bad time in the afternoon for restaurant people. Most of them are getting ready for their night shift, especially this week. It's restaurant week. So I just think we need communication. And if you just don't say, well, the restaurants are this or that. Talk to the restaurants. If they're good with it, hey, who am I to say no? But talk to the people that you're affecting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Ray,
Lee?
can I ask a quick, Ray?
Alderman
Should I
Choi?
just ask a quick question? With the restaurant owners, and you know quite a few,
I said I talked to 5 tonight, 4 are
5
against it,
and 4
and
against
one said that if it's handled correctly.
Are you comfortable at all with, like I said, you said you were pretty much against this, but with the 150 foot, it's obviously probably a lot more amenable to you than a 50 foot, if that's the case. Or are you still fully against this?
I guess I don't quite understand. Are these guys going to take up a parking spot on the street and open their window and start selling food?
They have to be legally parked, correct.
So
They're on the street.
They're putting money in the meter, so to speak.
They have to be legally parked, so
Okay.
if it's a metered spot.
And they can't pull into a private parking spot and open
if
up.
They can do it on private property if they have permission of the property.
Okay. So what you're saying then, that 150 rule, they could technically pull in front of my parking lot, which is 150 feet away from my establishment, and sell food.
Correct. As long as they're not 150 feet from another establishment down the way.
Right. Well, 300 feet I'm okay with.
Thank you, Mr. Salter. Mr. Lee?
I just want to add one more thing to with what Steve mentioned there, the 10-foot length for as a food truck. My food truck is already established, and I'm going with the state requirement of 13 and 6 feet. Mine is I renovated like an old motorhome into a food truck. I gutted everything out, and I have a full complete kitchen inside there. And the length is like about 35 feet. The height is like about 12, almost 13 feet. Okay, so I just want to double check with you guys to see if you are limited to 10 feet, and that is something that we need to be able to change, because 10 feet you can't really do much about it. But for me, having the full length or complete kitchen in there, I need to have that much of a space to do with what I need to do.
Yeah, we definitely will discuss that. Right now, it's 36 feet long, 8 feet wide, 10 feet high, but that's, I'm sure we'll discuss.
Right.
We'll discuss the height, I'm sure.
And then also just to add on some of those restaurants that is pretty much saying that they're not in favor with what we have here as a food truck. I just want to let some of the restaurants that's here know that for some of the other cities, like this weekend we were over at Manitowoc doing their Subfest over there, and also down in Appleton we've been down there. And also in Kiwani. Over there, some of the restaurants, they invite us to go there as like an advertising because they do with what they do as hamburgers or pizza or with what they have there. And for us here, we do it as Asian food. They want to bring in something varieties and bring us in as like an advertising to help promote their business also there too. And for something like that, we are welcome to participate with some of these other restaurants that they want us to go and just as an advertising or promote their business and to serve our food to some of their customer. And we could do like a once a week or like a once a month. And some of these other restaurants, they ask us to go about once a week or once a month just to help their promote their business too. So that just want to give you an insight on some of these other restaurants that
Appreciate it.
they with how they can use us as a food truck to promote their business too. So okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Anyone else? All right. Without objection, we'll return back up here and then open it up for Alderman. All right. So back up here, Alderman Zima. I know you wanted to withhold your comments, so.
Okay, I wanted to take this first because I thought it was the first thing on the agenda here tonight. I have our trip is to visit my son yet tonight. But, first of all, I feel like I've got to bring this somewhat back into a little bit more reality. We've heard a lot of this anecdotal type testimony, and I don't want to say any of it's ineffective or wrong, right or wrong, one way or the other, but it strikes me that we have to come to the reality that all of these food trucks are going to be competing for the food dollars in our community, and for, to some extent, one of the ladies talked about, and even other places, for the parking spaces that are available in the community for the food dollars. I feel if you really want to do something, and I approve of having an ordinance, even if the ordinance says prohibiting them, people need to be able to come in the community and know whether they are welcome or not. And if they are welcome, what are the restrictions? And I think I think they have to be more restrictive, is what I feel. And I think if you really want to make a good ordinance, you need to take a survey. You need to put together a decent survey to find out how the brick and mortar, the licensed facilities in our community feel about this. You have to be proactive and go out and ask them about it. People have busy lives. I don't think most people know about this meeting here tonight either. I know it's, you can find it if you're looking for it or something else like that. But I think you've got to go out and ask people about it. I, for one, I think that the food truck should be restricted to really factory settings, to places where other food choices aren't available because of restricted time. People only got a half hour at the mill or something like that, or special events. It was said, well, they can compete more easily. It's a chance for people to be more entrepreneurial. Yeah, that's right. How about all the people who are making investments into the community? And we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we really want? What is it we're really trying to promote? I always thought that we're trying to promote permanent business, permanent employment for people in our community. That isn't just a fly-by-night, I'll take a fly at this, come in, come out from some other place, take the dollars right out of the community or whatever. And also, the safety of the community, the public health. And I tell you, maybe restaurant owners feel like, well, a couple, 2 or 3 times a year is more than they really want. But, that is what happens. I think you find in this type of operation, the health inspection outside the initial request for a license is going to be insignificant, if not at all. We had the problem with the food carts downtown. And some of them were pretty good. That that fad has sort of faded away. I guess there's one or two yet, and it's no big deal, so it doesn't become it doesn't become anything before us. But this is, you're inviting something. Now, there's some folks that might think that, well, that outside atmosphere, that little bit more carnival type atmosphere, it'd be good. I mean, maybe if I just had a tavern without food, I might think, well, yeah, they draw more people in my area and they'd be coming in and buying drinks at my place. But it might be hurting the restaurant next door or the fast food establishment. This is supposed to be quicker food, right? Faster food. Well, how many people buy franchises to risk their capital to have these type of places, whether it's a Subway or Burger Gertz or whatever it happens to be? I think I would prefer that we stick to what our original goals were, to try to fill the storefronts. We have empty storefronts. Are you going to have more empty storefronts? I tell you, one place goes down because the available food dollars are sucked away. And I was happy when a Subway store went up on Dousman. I was hoping that more things like that would come into Broadway, and that more things to draw people to the area. But Mr. Buckley, I'll tell you, the owner, has burned a couple of our ears about it. Makes a substantial investment, trying to keep people employed. And if you're sucking any of that oxygen out of those operations, one of them fails, everything you said you're doing is all for naught. And I really think it should be restricted. And again, there's double standard. Oh, we're going to protect Bay Beach because the city runs it, but we aren't going to protect other people that way. Maybe it ought to be 500. I don't know. I think you're liberalizing the laws regarding these food trucks will eventually lower the atmosphere of your community, in my opinion. It's where people kind of hang out, and we want to make sure we have a place for the drunks after bar hours to have a place to eat. Oh, really? Yeah, let's have them congregating around on the streets. I don't see much good in this, and I think we need to take a survey and ask the people who are paying the taxes, that are employing people, that provide bathrooms and everything else for customers. These folks don't provide anything other than their cash register to take in the money. So I think you got to think long and hard about it. They've got to prohibit them until you come up with what you feel is worthwhile. I mean, I think we've had some form of food truck for a long, long time, actually. I think they've had gone to some factory-type settings. Seems to me I saw some of those. But I don't know. The more of those there are, they're taking the food dollars. And if it even marginally starts affecting, the margins are pretty thin on a lot of businesses. You pull 5% away from the margin, you might just be taking them down. And then you'll have some more unemployed people and some more empty storefronts. You wonder what you're going to do about it. So I think you got to think long and hard about this. There's some people that are cavalier about it. They just want to be in an atmosphere that has that sort of thing. Well, I guess that is a preference of some people. But I think the overall good of the city, this should be extremely restrictive.
Thank you, Alderman Zima. Alderman Zabisky, Alderman Nenning, did you have anything as well?
I don't want to mention. I just want to hand it over to Donnie to explain the 500 feet. There's a logical reason for the 500 feet.
Sure.
She can explain it.
Director Kramer?
Yes. The 500 feet was put into place because the park is so large. And it covers Bay Beach and the Wildlife Sanctuary, and there's multiple concession areas in the park. I'd like to bring up the point that we're not being treated special. Anybody can bring food into Bay Beach Park. Food is brought in for every picnic we have there, for every family reunion that we have there, for every corporate event that we have there. So that park is open and anybody can use that for that issue. The catering, the food trailers, we allow those food trucks in for all special events that we have there. We want to manage that situation. We have corporate picnics that bring in their own catering, hiring catering. So we're looking at it from a management point, and that is where we're coming from on it. So we're not against any of this. We're just saying from management, and because we're so large and the number of areas of concessions that we had, that was the reason for the 500 feet. It wasn't to be special or to say, hey, you deserve better than anybody else. Again, I want to reiterate that anybody can walk into that park with food, and everybody does. And we would certainly make a whole lot more money if we restricted that or guarded that, but that's not our mission. Our mission is to allow that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Nenning?
Yeah, I just make a couple of comments. I talk to a lot of restaurant owners, both in my district and throughout the city, and I participated in the same meeting Mr. Wisbicki was referring to. And, I think this also had a lot of attention in the newspapers and through the media. So, people who had concerns or issues on it certainly have had an opportunity to bring them forward. This issue has been discussed in the community for a couple of months now. And, it's like any issue that comes before the city council. Well, you could send out all the surveys you want, but, if people have concerns, there are ways to find out what's going on. I think the business organizations did make a decent effort to get the word out among their members. The media covered it well. So I think it's had a lot of attention. And the focus, at least from my perspective on this, is to find some reasonable regulations. Food trucks have become a popular thing, a trendy thing in a lot of urban areas around the country. And there are all sorts of studies you can find on how food trucks have helped the business climate in communities. Because not everyone wants to go to a sit-down meal, so it doesn't, in every case, directly compete with other businesses. The other aspect that we learned in talking with this is that there are a lot of bricks and mortar businesses in the community that are also looking at having food trucks as a way of extending the reach of their business. So you had these different interests at play here, and it was a case of trying to find some regulations that are reasonable. I know it's one of those issues where you're not going to satisfy all the people all the time, but let's come up with something that's reasonable. I think looking at this thing from an overview, I think this is a good attempt to get at it. And I think Alderman Scanlon said at the meeting, at the council meeting, let's start with this. If there are ways that we have to tweak this as time goes along, fine. But I really don't think this is going to be the end of the world as far as existing businesses are concerned. I think it'll give the public an alternative when someone wants to get a meal on the run. If you're walking along a trail or something and you want to just grab a quick bite to eat and don't want to go to a sit-down meal or don't have a fast food restaurant right in front of you. I do think there's one issue that I do want to make sure we don't lose sight of here, and that's an issue that Alderman Slotnick brought up at the city council meeting. He looked at this and said that in the proposed ordinance on the second page, section 2G, it talks about licenses being subject to revocation if they're not used for a period of 90 days, and that during the winter months a lot of the food trucks probably won't be in operation. And I do think he has a point there, especially because these licenses go through June 30th, so that July 1st through June 30th of the following year. Well, if during that 90-day period during the winter months, if you're not operating, you might have to come in and get another license for May and June, for example, until your license comes up. I would urge you to look at alternatives there, because I know Alderman Slotnick was concerned about that, and I think there are two ways around that. You know, maybe that paragraph G, talking about, you know, revoking after not use for 90 days, maybe that's not necessary. I'm not sure that it is. It's an annual license, and maybe that isn't necessary. Or another way that it could possibly be addressed is to change the expiration date, let's say to the end of March. You know, so if you lose your license during the winter months, it's no big deal. You have another license starting April 1st, you know. So I think those are two ways that that could be addressed, and I just urge you before you finish review of it to consider all of Ms. Sladek's concerns.
Alderman Steuer?
Thank you, Dave, for those comments. You've looked through this, obviously, and you've been through, you know, some meetings with a number of business owners and other officials. Is there anything else that concerns you, or points that you want to look at on this, or are you fairly comfortable with what is proposed as far as the 150 foot?
I'm fairly comfortable with it. I think it has had a lot of review. You know, certainly the comments on the height restriction, you know, those are things that I would certainly agree could be adjusted. If anyone has any specific amendments to it, you know, I urge people to bring those amendments forward, and let's get on with the debate and make some decision on this. You know, there have been several meetings of this committee where it's been discussed, and with very little input from other council members. And you know, this is the kind of issue where, sure, you know, people, and not everybody may be happy with it, but I do think you have to bring it to some sort of a deliberative process where we can make some decisions and move on. And so except for those couple of amendments that I've talked about, you know, I think, you know, I'm ready to, I would urge the committee to forward it to the council. If any of my colleagues have other amendments you want to introduce, go right ahead.
Thank you, Alderman.
Could I just ask Dave a question?
Sure.
Mr. Wisniewski. You guys had some meeting with some business people?
Yeah, the DGBI group organized a meeting with businesses that had concerns about it, and
if we could, Alderman Zimmer, I'm just going to redirect it if it's okay.
Yeah.
There's a question about the meeting. I just want, so we can pick it up on here in the committee's report. Sure.
I'm just interested in who was actually attending, how many were attending.
Yep, good question.
You know, I mean, who's talking about? I mean, there's a lot of businesses in this community, so I don't know if a few people met and they talked amongst themselves, or was it a very wide group of people?
Alderman Zimmer, let's find out.
Okay,
Alderman Nanning or Alderman Wisniewski, how many meetings were there? When were they?
Well, there are 3 council members that attended that particular meeting. I've talked to, you know, one-on-one with other businesses in my district, but that particular meeting, there were 3 council members, Mr. Scannell, Mr. Wisniewski, and myself. There were businesses there that there were restaurant owners that spoke not only on their behalf, but on behalf of other restaurants as well. I don't know the exact count. Maybe Crystal could answer that. The number of people who were there. It certainly wasn't 100 people or anything like that. It was people around the table.
So were you talking half a dozen businesses?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But many of them represented, you know, brought thoughts from fellow business people as well.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just, to me, that's still a pretty small sample, and just people talking amongst themselves and bringing things forward. That's the opinion of a very small group of people. I think you need to take a larger survey, find out how people feel it would affect their businesses, and whether they're in favor of it or not.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zimmer. Anything else you want to add other than that? I understand.
The ones that
I understand. Anything new you wanted to add, so we can move to discussion with the committee? No? Thank you. Alderman Wisniewski, anything new to add?
Just a clarification. I was there because I'm actually a member of DBI. I work on Main Street also with Crystal and the guys downtown. I love downtown, so I'm in every committee you possibly think of, and that's my list because I love the presence of positive attitude.
So is it safe to say 6 to 10 businesses?
Anyway, that transpired when I saw the news going on. I invited myself, and there was like 12 or 14 people.
About a dozen. All right, thank you. All right, well, we can open the floor, otherwise the committee's going to debate it right now. Mr. Lee?
Add one more?
Motion open the
All
floor.
right, well, without objection, we'll open the floor. Mr. Lee?
Second.
Yeah, please.
Just want to let you know that the board, for us operating under the current permit with the city of Green Bay, with your permit that give us like the fees like $350 for the direct
Mr. Lee, do
seller.
you mind coming up here just so we can,
We can't hear it.
we have some elderly on the committee and they're hearing.
Okay. For the,
What'd you
Yeah,
say?
we are older.
What?
Okay.
for the current situation with the city of Green Bay, you asked us to get like a direct seller permit with the city of Green Bay. That's a $350 annual fee. And you only require us to get like 4 spots for our food truck in the area. And for that 4 spot, we need to get permission from the property owner to operate in the parking lot. And I just want to let you know what I encountered over the past year of all the business or the property owner that I encountered with what they said to me that they turned me down. Because basically to operate in the parking lot, because it's private property, they asked us to see if we have insurance and if our insurance would be able to put them under our insurance to cover them just as a liability if somebody come in and fell down in the parking lot while they're coming to our food truck. And majority of the other property owner that I talked throughout Green Bay here, they turn us down because of that situation. And the only one right now that we're able to operate right now is only on the east side by the Brown County Library on the owner there, and she's willing to allow us to be over there with no problem. But all the other one that we've been asked for to be in the parking lot or on their property, they pretty much turn us down. And that's what we are encountering right now, and that's why we don't have our 4th spot. With this ordinance of opening up the street for us to as a food truck, and I understand that majority we are talking about the downtown area. For us as a food truck, we're only in the downtown area for some of the special events. We haven't been in the downtown area to come and compete with some of these other businesses. We are pretty much looking at for some of the other, like on the east side or west side, that some of the other community, they want us to go there and to sell our food. That's what we're looking at. And mainly, we like to see this ordinance to go through just because of that issue,
Right.
so we won't have that hassle of asking each property owner and being turned down for each
I think
time.
we did get that. Any questions for Mr. Lee? I think we understood what you were trying to
Yeah.
say there.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add that.
Anyone else? Well, the floor is open, otherwise the committee's going to start discussing it. Without objection, we'll return up here and
Make a motion.
who's handling it first? Alderman Dwayne.
So how long has this ordinance been in effect, and how many amendments are we working on?
I have a list of the amendments that were presented
Okay,
today.
and one of the main amendments is we have a map of where the time frame can go
Yep,
from.
the
is it-
downtown time.
Downtown time is 3 a.m. I
Right.
think that's the big issue here, I believe. And the location of 150 feet, 500. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's an issue. It's an issue to you.
So,
Did you want to eliminate it, change it, or what's your?
well, that's my concern. I mean, just to have one location in the downtown eliminating, they'd be exempt at 3 a.m. versus other locations throughout the city.
Right. Correct.
So that's one concern. Another concern is, I've heard several times on that, the fact that who put this communication in? And I keep hearing staff, but to be fair with everybody, is there anybody specific that put this in? Is there a hard copy?
No, there was no communication. I guess I don't understand the staff can't generate communications. I mean, there's things on this agenda today that are requested by staff. So I would just say it was kind of collectively economic development, city attorney's office, because we're getting calls from people saying, I have a food truck, where can I operate, when can I operate, how do you regulate it? Planning was a big one because we're looking to zoning. It's regulated a little bit under our direct sellers, but not exactly. That's more for the carts on the sidewalk. So that's really why I collectively got together and said, okay, at some point we need to address this.
Thanks, Jim. That's what I.
Yep, and it was planning and city attorney's office that worked on drafting the ordinance.
Okay. Now, we're doing 150 from businesses. We just went over in planning yesterday that if a Hardee's wants to open up, they have to notify residents within 200 feet. Why are we making these businesses on wheels exempt from not notifying the other businesses via letter?
I'm not familiar with that, but I can look into it. Is that a zoning
Planning.
requirement?
Zoning,
Planning?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that requirement.
I don't know, Mr. Sema, do you have any history on that?
Well, when they do rezonings, they have to
When,
notify.
if you could, Alderman Zima,
Oh,
Alderman Zima, one
Sorry.
more. You're saying a rezoning. Okay. So if it's zoned correctly, they can just move in, but you're saying if they get a rezoning, then a certain area.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
They get notified,
Right.
200 feet.
Yeah.
This would eliminate any question as far as other businesses. And if we wanted to set up a citywide meeting, that would cure it. That would help everybody with information. That's it.
Any other issues other than the,
No,
when
no.
we have the hours and some notification?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just trying to keep
So-
track as we go on, all right? Alderman Steuer?
Thank you, Chair. Some good discussion here. I'd like to ask Attorney Miller, if you would, or someone on the committee, how many food trucks have there been in this area that have been vending as of late? Is there some kind of number as far as the folks that have?
Probably the best person to ask would be on Broadway during your special events. They've really had the amount of food trucks. I haven't been a part of that, so I'm
Okay.
not aware.
All right, I'm just trying to get a handle as far as the number of trucks that are out there already. The height of the structure itself, you know, I'm a little concerned with that too, if 10 foot is enough. You know, it's interesting. I mean, over the years, we look at the city of Green Bay. We've looked how it's grown, how it's developed. And I've got a couple of teenagers myself, young 20s, and I talk to them a lot. You know, they're the ones that are going to be living in this city, hopefully, as time goes on. I heard some of the comments from some of the citizens that say that it's another alternative. And I do listen to the brick and mortar people as well. I guess, you know, after listening to a few of the other comments, I feel fairly comfortable with 150 foot for now. This might be something that could change over time. We can look at it again. Maybe it's like, well, this didn't quite work out. We can revisit that. But I think we need to start somewhere. I'm fairly comfortable with 150 foot. I would still like to see a map or something showing the setbacks and see what areas are affected. If some folks were talking about 300 foot or 500 foot, you know, you would pretty much just eliminate most areas, I think. So I would like to see something to that effect. I also, you know, the input from businesses, as you said, like having a survey of sorts, having folks out there talking about this. I would think that the business owners that would look at something like this would study this ordinance and say, okay, yes, I agree or disagree. You can have some people just make comments like, well, I don't want that because it competes against my business. You know, it's like anything else. You know, we get a lot of packets of information. We have to read a lot of this information. And I just want the folks that vote one way or the other or agree one way or the other to look at it and understand it so that they're not just making just a flippant comment about it. At this time, I feel comfortable with everything that's been said with 150 foot at this time. Also, the comment that was brought on 2G on the 90 days. I kind of agree with what Alderman Nenning said about making it March 30th. I'd be comfortable with that as well. So that would be my recommendation as far as 2G, changing it. Oh, sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. That's just, those are my comments.
I was going to ask if we could just pull that. I was going to get the attorneys.
If we could first, I'm going to ask the committee, is there any interest in scrapping the ordinance? If not, then let's work through it and make changes that we think we want. So is there any motion to just delete or? Okay, then let's, one at a time, take up the issues. I know you have them listed. If we miss any, point them out. Alderman Stoy, you still have the floor. Did you want to take that one up right away?
Well, like I said, the 2G would be one that I would look at and just say that we could change that to March 30th. This will the 90 days. I think that I understand where that was coming from. And
maybe we could ask our attorneys.
If I could, and I agree that something needs to be done with 2G, I would actually eliminate that. And the reason I won't go to March 30th is because we try to sync all of our licensing up at the
Okay.
same time, so the clerks kind of know to get everything out. If you do it different dates, then they gotta follow that, and it'd be tough. I think since this is an annual license, I
I'd be
really,
comfortable.
Got a motion to delete 2G?
Yes, to eliminate.
Motion by Alderman
Second.
Stoyer, second by Alderman Scannell, under discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that carries. Alderman Sawyer, any other changes you wanted to do right now?
You know, as, like I said, the request that I had was to see what areas would be eliminated, per se, from having food trucks in it. And I don't know if that's part of the ordinance, or if that would be have to be a communication above and beyond this, because we're studying the ordinance at this time. But in order to make a solid decision, I think it would be good to have something that we could look at and say, this is what a 50-foot setback would do, this is what a 150-foot setback would do. It would give the committee, but it would also give the council a lot better information.
I'm gonna work on that internally. I'll attempt to get you those maps. I can't guarantee anything. I don't know if we can delineate between
Well-
restaurants, but I will attempt to do that before the
If you
next
could,
council meeting.
you're gonna have to look at, obviously, restaurants. Most taverns have food. You have grocery stores, convenience stores can be
I think so.
challenge,
That
but
would
if you
lump anything that, any place that sells any kind of food.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll try to get that.
Thank you.
That's it for now.
I know we had the issue of the height. I think
The
it's
height, well, it said-
7B7,
Yeah.
the 10 feet. I think 13.6 is what we're hearing is state code.
And my recommendation would just be, I think what happened with that is people were concerned about parking spots and how wide they would stick out. That's where they put the 10 feet. But I understand if it's a state regulation, I would just amend that to make sure they're complying with the
With the
state
states.
regulation. And I think that's a simple amendment.
Can I get a motion to
Motion to change the
7B7? I think.
7D7
I would second that.
To state
state
regulations.
regulations.
Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
That is, that's giving enough direction.
Those in favor, we had Scannell and Stoyer with the motion, discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I think there's a few other items here. I did have one question on the private property. If you have the okay from someone to be in their parking lot, does that exempt you from the 150 foot?
I don't.
That came up last time, and we've never really got a clear answer on that.
My reading of this would be that it does not exempt you from 150 foot, unless it is 150 feet from that establishment. You know what I'm saying? So if you're in an establishment, you get permission to be in their parking lot. Inherently, you've got permission to violate the 150 foot rule from that. So I think you'd be fine there if there's an establishment next to them that says, no, you don't have our permission, then you would not be able to operate. That'd be my interpretation of that.
Makes it clear?
I guess one quick question, if I could.
Sure.
When you say 150-foot setback, is that from the middle of the front door? Is it from the corner of the property?
It'd be the edge of the lot line.
The edge of the lot line?
I thought the 150 foot was from any entrance,
Oh,
public entrance.
You're right. I believe that's what it's.
Yeah,
Any public entrance, not just the front, any public entrance.
That's so cool. When you say
That's
public,
something you could look at, public entrance, lot line.
well,
how you
public
want that.
entrance
Public
to a
entrance.
when public, private or public?
I would leave it at public. It's where
Public.
the public enters.
Public. No,
That's a good measuring tool. That's. I get that.
All right.
There was one other issue with the concessions at a park. Obviously, most are in residential areas and they're already excluded. There are a
Right.
few that are out near, I guess, commercial or boundary. Do we want to add something to that?
So,
Well,
I was gonna bring that up.
That would be 7C. 7C.
C5?
7C. That's your general 150 foot ban. I would just add city parks that sell concessions to that.
All right with the
Make a
committee?
motion to, make a said motion.
Motion by Alderman
I would
Scannell,
second
second by Alderman
that.
Stoyer for 7C.
all right.
7C. Within 150 feet, we're adding city parks with concessions.
Mm-hmm.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I would like to bring up for discussion,
No.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Alderman.
Our definition of what constitutes a restaurant for 150 feet. Were we considering Bars that just sold pizza, or are we considering restaurant, grocery stores? I did not think,
It just says food.
Yeah, it says, I
Food.
think, food establishment or establishment that sells food. That's, if you want to break that down, I completely understand what the speaker said. That's going to be pretty tough to start getting in the weeds on that one.
well, could it be a licensed restaurant? 150 feet from any public entry to a licensed restaurant,
Licensed by the health department, you're saying?
whoever
Yeah.
gives it. Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm fine. I guess I would need some time to think through that. I just think there's other ramifications. But I'm fine with that amendment, but I just want some time before council to think through that. And I'll bring it up on council if I
Right.
see an issue with that.
Okay, then I would like to make that motion, and we can deal with it at council. I think I would like to see that change now.
But then I just want to make sure that the people who spoke earlier, I think there was this understanding that was from bars or pubs and grocery stores, because then we're just limited to restaurants. And then there's always a question of, let's take a Fox Heights, Fox Harbor. Is that a bar or restaurant? So.
They're licensed to sell food.
Right.
I mean,
But most establishments are, but what are your expectations of what that, I understand that, but what's your expectation of what is a restaurant and what's not?
anything that's licensed.
Anything that's licensed.
If it's not licensed, it's not a restaurant.
Should we, did you gentlemen want to make?
I see there's some commentary going on in the public. Did anybody
No, I'm
want to
just
weigh
saying,
in on
if
that
you want to
particular
speak,
item?
we can
or-
open a floor if you need to.
Nope.
No,
Oh,
okay.
And I guess.
You will.
I agree. I just want to say that if it's licensed, I have a license.
If you
for
could,
my-
I'm just going to.
Okay,
just open the floor.
Without objection, we'll open the floor.
Yeah.
I just need your name and address, please. It'll make it, so we can hear it for the record, too.
Yeah,
I'm
that-
Don, 840 South Broadway, and I have a business. I have a license, but I don't have a full kitchen. I have a fryer, but I have to have a health inspected, license to obtain that. And I agree. I think get it done now, and then worry about it later. But 150 feet, food truck can go in a million different places around town. It doesn't have to be just like measuring how far it is from one restaurant or another. They can go to different businesses. It doesn't have a kitchen or a license or things like this. So I do agree that passing that now, I don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that, I wasn't at the earlier meetings,
Right.
that's the understanding. But certainly we can make that motion and then.
Actually,
if there's an issue.
go ahead.
Anything
I'm
else?
not sure that we had any input from I think most of the input I got was from, if they were a bar owner, they also had a restaurant. I can't think of that we got much input from just bar owners. I don't think. It's been mostly restaurants who are concerned, the brick and mortar
Right,
restaurants who are.
that makes sense.
They're the ones who are gonna,
Right.
a bar isn't gonna go out of business with, So, I would make the motion to
Make a motion to,
amend it to license, any licensed restaurant.
do we have the number, attorney?
That might be a couple places, Phil,
Oh,
but
okay.
I understand what that
I just
motion
wanted to
is.
ask
Replace
clarification
food
on
or
that.
food establishment with licensed food establishment.
That's the motion by Alderman Scannell. Is there a
I-
second?
For discussion.
All right, second by Alderman Stoyer, and then discussing anything further.
I just
Alderman
wanted to,
Scannell? Alderman
yes.
Stoyer?
Okay, thank you.
And then over to-
I like how you brought that up as far as a licensed restaurant. I think that would be important, but, when you talk about food, food is sold at gas stations and stores and all that type of thing. And I'm not sure if there'd be any pushback from any of those establishments as well, so. I would think not, but who knows, we can't assume on that, so. For discussion, I think it would work to talk about licensed establishments, licensed restaurants, and I think those are the ones that we've heard the most from. So I'd be comfortable with that.
Alderman Dwayne?
Not on this item.
Okay. So under this one, we have a motion and a second to change the food to licensed restaurant, with understanding that you're going to research this a little bit and have more information at council. Right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Changes, discussion, Alderman Dwayne?
As long as the floor is open, I'd like to ask.
Oh, my apologies. We made that motion in the floor, yeah, didn't we?
Yes.
Do we have to pick it up?
That's
All
fine,
right.
it's a committee.
Taiwan, if I could ask you a question?
Floor will be back open again without committee, okay? All right, Mr. Lee?
I have to leave in 5 minutes.
Thanks again. In other areas of different cities, you sell your vending. As far as sanitation requirements, how far do you have to clean up your area? Like
Around your
for
truck.
wrappers, spilled ketchup, maybe sickness?
Mainly we have like a trash in front of our food truck where we're serving them. So if they need to throw any trash, then they can throw there, or they take it with them as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you do any cleaning around your truck before you leave?
If we see like if they're throwing like napkins or some of our trays or so, that yes, we do clean up a little bit there. But we haven't had any problem with that because we do have like a waste basket, a pretty big one in front of our food truck, so they throw everything in there.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Okay.
Without objection, we'll return back up here, and you have the floor, Mr. Duane, Alderman Duane.
I'd just like to point out that those type of requirements, that keeping it clean within 25 feet of location and having a 30-gallon container are part of the regulation.
It's under 7A6 regulations generally. All persons conducting business on sidewalk or terrace must maintain within 25 feet of their sales location a clean and hazard-free condition. It goes on to state you have to have a garbage container.
May I make an amendment to that to
Certainly.
include any sickness? I mean, this is going to be open till 3 a.m. I think there's going to be
You're
probably
saying.
some intoxicated people.
So do you want to bar the intoxicated people, or
No,
No,
I-
that
the
clean up includes
sanitation requirement.
the product of an intoxicated
Under-
person? The byproduct?
Under 7,
no.
under 7.6.
We'll say clean, sanitary, and hazard-free condition. How about that?
Yeah,
That
correct.
was-
We got where you're going.
Just throw that up, will you?
All right, there's a motion by
Just throw
Alderman.
that up, will you?
Just threw that one out.
All right, motion by Alderman Duane. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Scannell. The motion is to add clean and sanitary.
Yes.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any other changes? I'll just state, we've had this for a few months now, and I've heard from really no one personally. No one's called me or contacted me about this except for my friends and family. They thought it was great. So that's the only contact I've had. My sister was in town from Fort Wayne. Her husband works downtown. They have this there, and they love it. And they didn't believe we didn't have it. So that's really the only feedback I've had. Like any new ordinance, let's try it. We can tweak it. Things are never perfect out of the gate. So, except when it comes from this committee.
Yes.
So I'm fine with moving ahead on this.
Okay.
I'd just like to say, we're not inventing food trucks here. They are in other communities, and a lot of our ordinance, for example, the 50-foot originally we started with was from another ordinance, and I believe Appleton. So that is their ordinance, and it's working fine there. So I think 150 is more than an ample compromise, and I agree that I think it's just time to get this rocking and rolling.
I agree, and if you're going to start out as an entrepreneur, this is the starter kit for the bricks and mortars that we have around our city. We have a lot of empty buildings, so I wish you guys luck and now and in the future. Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt as amended.
Motion to adopt.
I second that.
Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Stoyer. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I need to excuse myself.
Alderman Stoyer is giving a speech at the museum if you're interested at 7 o'clock.
If anybody wants to stay awake.
You got 45 minutes.
Archaeology,
I gotta go over.
architecture, history.
Just want to take
We're taking a 5-minute break. So,
Okay.
5 minutes. Thanks. People ladders. Oh, my gummy. Someone's sitting in my bed. My emergency gummy.
Oh, by the way, mention the council.
We're on to number 13, request by the owner of Richard Craniums to extend their liquor license to include the outdoor area at 840 South Broadway. Attorney.
Yeah, if you can see in your packet, they've actually supplied us with a nice site plan review, which went through our plan committee, some pictures of it. I really have no concerns with this. I'm just not really aware of where this is in the planning division, so I have no objections. I would just make a contingent on any other applicable city approvals.
And I would concur.
Anyone here for Richard Craniums? Any questions of the applicant, or what are your wishes, committee?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, second.
Motion by Alderman Duane, second by Alderman Scannell to approve the understanding that all other city requirements are met? Yep. All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. Number 14, appeal by Manfred McGee to the denial of his public vehicle operator license. Attorney.
Right, the city attorney's office recommends denial based on an arrest and conviction record which substantially relates to the license activity. In 2002, the applicant was convicted of armed robbery, which is a felony, and also fleeing, which was a felony as well.
Captain.
I echo his comments.
Mr. McGee here. Mr. McGee.
I'll make a motion to deny.
Second?
Motion by Alderman Dwayne, second by Alderman Scannell to deny. Under discussion, we'll note the person was not here, so. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 15, appeal by Duangelo. Is Mr. George here? No? Okay. Never seen it spelled like that. No. Dunagello George, to the denial of his operator license application.
The city attorney's office recommends denial based on an arrest and conviction record which substantially relates to license activity. In 2013, Mr. George was convicted of 2 counts of bail jumping, both felonies, and burglary, which was a felony.
Once again, Mr. George is in here. What are your wishes?
Motion to deny? Or, yeah,
Yes.
motion to deny.
Deny the appeal. Okay, motion by Alderman Scannell.
And I'll second that due to the fact that when they don't show up, I automatically deny it.
Second by Alderman Dwayne, and we haven't had any notice, and obviously they can show up at council if they're not, so. All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 16, appeal by Taylor Haig to the denial of his operator license application.
I am here.
Oh,
I'm here. I'll let you know right away.
too late. You should have said that. We'll go to our attorneys, and then we'll open the floor.
Sure.
Attorney?
The city attorney's office recommends denial based on arrest and conviction record which substantially relates to the license activity. In 2001, the applicant was convicted of obstructing officer misdemeanor, attempted armed robbery, which was a felony. In 2002, disorderly conduct, which was just a forfeiture. 1998, retail theft, which was a forfeiture. So the big conviction here is the attempted armed robbery felony.
I would say from the police department's perspective, based on his history of criminal record, that we would recommend denial.
Captain?
Motion to open the floor?
Motion by Alderman
Second.
Scannell, second by Alderman Dwayne to open the floor. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. If you're here for this item, please come
Perfect,
forward.
thank you, I appreciate
Name and
it.
address, yeah.
So I certainly welcome any questions that you guys may have. And I can certainly understand where these two gentlemen are coming from as well. So the whole point of me filing for this is right now, for the last 2 years, I've been helping out the nonprofit group, the Menasha Girls Basketball Association, working at the Lambeau Field during the football games. And I got a good friend of mine that represents the Menasha Girls Basketball Association. He asked if I would be able to come to the games and actually help, whether it would be stocking or serving or just helping with the books at the end of the night. I said, I don't have any problem doing that. At that time, I only been to a couple of Packer games. I'm like, yeah, sure. It'd be fun to kind of see it from the other side of the fence, so I'll do it. I don't have any problem donating my time. My wife doesn't like it that much. My kids don't like it that much, but I don't have a problem doing that. So it was a favor to him the first year, and I attended all the home games. So I worked with helping to stock and do inventory and just basic things like that. Last year was my second year. They asked if I could come back and do it again because they can't make it to every single game. I said, yeah, sure, I'd be more happy to come back and do it again. Did it last year. This year, the company Delaware North, they run the concessions, and they asked that each group has someone there that has I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the license I'm even applying for. An operator's license, thank you. And this is something new that they've never asked before. So the Menasha Girls Basketball Association asked me, since I've been pretty much the only person that's been able to be there for every single game for the last 2 years, if I wouldn't have any problem doing this. I said I don't have any problem doing this at all. So I went on, I did all the online stuff, I filed the paperwork, I paid for what needed to be paid, and I didn't even know anything about the felony fact that it would be rejected right away until I came to the city clerk's office and I wrote out the check and handed it to her and I said, okay, great, I'm all done. Anything else? And she goes, well, if you're convicted of a felony, it's probably going to be denied right away. And I'm like, okay, so I'm here tonight to plead my case. I'm not looking to work at a bar. I'm not looking to have this to work at all. I'm actually just looking to have this to help out the Menasha Girls Basketball Association. So someone at the Lambeau Field game actually has this license that's gone through all the online course, the training and everything. Somebody has it, and I'm the one person that's been there at every single game for the last 2 years, so I volunteered to do that. So that's me asking tonight if that denial could be overturned, specifically just to do this, to help out the nonprofit group at Lambeau Field during the football games. I don't want it for any other reason than that. And that's it. And I'm more than happy to ask any questions about my past. One thing that I will say in regards to my past, it was a long time ago. I certainly feel I've paid my debt for that one, and I'll answer any questions you might have. Since that's happened, I have had a completely clean record. I haven't even had a speeding ticket since things that I've obviously turned around. I think the only time I've been pulled over is the wonderful traffic light headlight being out, and we all get to go through the fun of having that corrected now. That's been my only time of dealing with law enforcement since all the way back to 15 plus years ago.
Well, if you don't mind, Mr. Hague, I think Alderman Duane has a question for you.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to answer anything.
Sounds like you're doing well with the Menasha girls. What are you doing now besides selling beer for the
So
girls?
currently my full-time job is I work at Imperial Supplies here in Green Bay. Actually, they have two offices, one in Green Bay and one in De Pere, and I actually work in the De Pere office. I live in Shiocton, so I drive to Green Bay every single day. I've been there for the last year and a half. Prior to that, I was working at West Business Services in Appleton for 8+ years.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Imperial. My dad helped start that business with Don.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, now you have to recuse yourself.
It seems like you're making some very good progress from 2001.
Thank you.
Could you just tell me what happened on that day?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to. I've shared this story many a times, not only with friends and family, but amazing when you have a felony that sticks to you. When you have a record.
Mr. Hague, just how old were you at the time? Just to kind of set that.
I was 21 at the time.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
What stemmed of it, and by no means am I saying this is any kind of an excuse, but at the time, I fell in some very difficult, hard times. I had a newborn son at the time. His mom was not working. His mom and I are no longer together. I have custody of him. He lives with me. He visits her in the summertime, so he's with her currently right now at this moment. So he's 15 years old. At the time, he was just born. Money was very tight. I was working in a garage doing oil changes, tire rotations, things like that. Pay was not the greatest, not an excuse. Rather than asking friends or family for help, I chose to listen to a buddy of mine that had a very easy way to fix some financial problems very quickly. So unfortunately, I took the easy road, and because I took the easy road, we attempted to rob somebody armed. We did not walk out of there with anything. In fact, it was a completely failed attempt, and looking back on it, it was completely ridiculous. In fact, when I tell people the details of what happened, including my own 15-year-old son who knows about this, because I was very open with him because his mom is always willing to share it. So I make sure he understands the details of my wrongs in my youth, so hopefully he doesn't repeat that. And looking back on it, we ran out of there. We ran out of there scared to death. And when we were done, we didn't hear anything from anybody. Well, buddy that, I use the term buddy very loosely here. My buddy at the time, he got convicted of something else. And as he was going down, he decided to go ahead and take anybody else he could with him to try and save his own skin. And he owned up to that robbery, and he pointed his finger right at me as I was the accomplice with it. And as when I met with the law enforcement, I guess looking back on it, I owned up to it right at the time. I didn't even fight it. I said, yep, I was there. It was wrong. It was stupid. So went before the judge. The judge in Chippewa County actually played golf with my grandfather. So that was a little strange. My grandfather was deceased at the time. My dad was in the courtroom, and even my dad said that he would not. He didn't use the term that he went lenient on me, but he used the term that he's surprised that what he did with me. So anyway, I ended up doing 1 year in jail. Ended up doing 8 months of lockdown, 4 months of Huber. Went through that, no problems at all. I never had any problems with being on Huber. I always left on time. I came back on time, paid all my Huber fees, kept my own home going at the time, continued to take care of my son at least as much as I could with all that going on. And then once I got out, I went through the terms of my probation, paid all my probation dues, actually got released from probation early without any problems at all. Never failed any kind of sobriety or drug test throughout my entire probation or during the time I was in jail, and haven't had any kind of issue since then.
Appreciate it, Mr. Alderman Dwayne.
I hope I answered your question.
A little further, I mean, you said it was a dumb thing to do. You're 21
Absolutely.
years old. Did you go there and pull a knife out or a gun?
It was a gun. It was a firearm.
Firearm?
Yes.
And went up to the cashier and said, "Give me all your money."
In pretty much terms, that's pretty much about how it happened.
And they didn't give it to you, and you ran.
No, my buddy ran out of there before I even had a. My buddy ran out of. I hate using the word buddy. The person I was with ran out of there, left me in there. The person that was in there said they did not have a key, and at that point I'm like, this is really a bad idea, and I was gone.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're very
That's
welcome.
Alderman Scannell, any
No, I have no questions.
Any further you wanted to add?
No, I think that is everything that I wanted to say.
Appreciate it.
So I certainly respect you guys' opinions to refuse it right away. I certainly hope my explaining of why I'm here asking for this is swaying. So my time I invested in, the cost I've invested in this, and simply to help them out through the 2015 Packer season is not time wasted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should I sit down?
If you want, yeah. Anyone else here for this item? Anyone else? All right. Without objection, we'll return up here. Alderman Wisbisky?
Wow. That was stupid, that's for sure. But man alive, it looks like this young man is really turning. He's really, that was a long time ago. And I guess what he's really unknown to me is if he was granted custody of his son, he's been forgiven already for his stupidity. I guess I would hope that would never be on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. All right, what are the wishes of the committee?
I agree with Alderman Wisbisky. We've dealt with other people's appeals in the past, and we accepted their appeal, and I have full confidence that you're going to be a good citizen here throughout.
Motion to accept.
Yeah, I'm going to second that.
All right, motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Dwayne to approve the appeal. Under discussion, I know we've talked about mitigating circumstances. You have to deny on your end. We hear the mitigating circumstances, obviously, of the number of years. So I think we can, for me, sounds like you've been perfectly clean. It was a stupid thing in your youth, so I'm perfectly fine with granting this.
I'll make sure my kids don't make the same mistake, that's for sure.
Good luck. Not so easy.
I appreciate that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Goes to council next week. Don't imagine you have to be there, but if you want to see it through, I'd be there. That's the only advice I can give.
Okay.
Because we're only a body recommends it to the full council next week, Tuesday. I don't imagine they would bring it up for discussion. I mean, we have several council people here.
If you don't mind asking the council's opinion, does council recommend that I be there? I've invested a lot of time in here this evening, and it's not always easy for me to be able to do this because I do have a 1-year-old at home as well.
I don't think you have to be there.
If we have Jerry's approval, it's okay.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if you need to be there. It would
Okay.
be a shock.
My wife will love to hear that. That'll be great.
Yeah. So hopefully we're not shocked. I mean, it's possible, but not likely. I would be shocked if you needed to be there.
Okay. I'll take a gamble based off what you guys are saying tonight. I probably will not be there.
Worst case scenario, we could refer this back for further discussion, so it wouldn't just get killed that day.
Okay.
I think that would be safe.
Okay. Is there anything else that I need to do in the meantime, so I'm not trying to drag anything
Nope.
out?
If approved, you can get your license the very next day, next Wednesday. So
Okay, so then.
you can just call the city clerk and ask how it went. Yeah.
Got it, so then next Tuesday is when it's
The
finished?
council.
Okay.
Probably about midnight.
Let's hope not.
Oh boy, well, that really makes me not want to attend.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, I appreciate it.
Number 19, request by staff to review with possible action the proposed ordinance 27-30410 relating to prohibiting drones at public events. We postponed this to clear up some language.
And I'm a little disappointed that Bill Bongo didn't have his drone today.
Yeah,
I missed that.
man.
You know, I've come back here and
I think we need to say that we need to put this down till next week too.
Or have it bring it to council.
Maybe at council, yeah. But yeah, what we did here is nothing's changed. There was some confusion about the definition of public event. We've changed that to special event. That's defined in our code. So that's the only change we've made. Again, they can't fly into a special event at an altitude below 400 feet. And there's some exceptions to that, but we've talked about that before. So.
That was the main concern. Alderman Rozbisky?
Does anybody have any second thoughts about this? I got exposed to this Saturday. I was on the Veterans Ride, and there was a guy that had a drone there, and this thing's over all these crowds of people and tents, and very expensive machinery all over the place. It just made me just a little bit nervous. I don't know if there should be some kind of control, or wow. You know, what if it fails? Do they fail?
And that's why the prohibition is you can't have them over special events, so they don't fall.
Yeah.
Unless you have their permission. Like the event could hire someone
Yeah.
to get some
The
areas.
event might have hired someone to actually be, they're videoing it and everything.
Yeah.
It could be.
Otherwise, no, because you could have a malfunction, a bad operator, you could have
Yeah,
malicious
if the
intent.
batteries
Yeah.
go or something, all of a sudden, bang, down it comes. I mean, it could kill somebody. They're
Yeah.
a pretty big piece of machinery, really.
And it's happened around the
Thank you.
country. Thanks, Alderman. Anyone else want to talk about this? Otherwise, we'll open the floor. All right, Alderman Duane.
This is a great ordinance. I think it's very dangerous, as we know that gentleman that sings, he got all cut up.
Mickey Martin was it or something like
Yeah.
that?
My
Somebody
question
at a
is,
concert.
law enforcement is exempt. I don't feel real comfortable with that, and if you could help me out. Because these drones could fail at any time. I mean, I don't care how much training you have, it could happen, and it could hurt an individual, including kids.
Well,
So, can you give me an update on that?
Well, if I could, I just wanted to clarify further. It does say, having obtained approval from the event organizer, right, or FAA.
Right, or the FAA. We obviously can't regulate the FAA. They can do what they like. So
Do we have drones, or does this mean more than just the police local?
we do not have drones. I think this means more than local police. I think it's really. I know this concern came out of the NFL and FBI for Lambeau Field. I think that's how it initially got to us. So I think they wanted us to put some regulations on that. I'm not aware of our department having any type of drones or having any.
sure.
So why
That's what you said.
do we have it written in there as law enforcement being exempt?
I think that may be for if we use them in the future, which I'm not aware of that we're doing, or for other law enforcement agencies,
Okay.
like the FBI or something like that.
I would like to see that amended to strike law enforcement. I just don't feel comfortable with the safety of a large event.
If I could, the way it's written, actually, you have to have permission from the event organizer, right?
I doubt if the federal government needs permission.
No, I think that the law enforcement don't need permission. It's just operators having obtained. So it cuts off at the or there. So it's law enforcement or operators who have obtained permission from the event organizer. So I don't
So
think
they
law
would get
enforcement-
permission
Or
also?
operators.
They do not. Law enforcement does not need permission. And if you have concerns with that, we could certainly strike it. But I didn't draft this ordinance. I'd like to look into that even more and see if maybe that's a requirement of the
Okay,
ordinance.
there's no rush on this.
No, we'd like to have something before the first Packer game. So we'd definitely like to get it done, and probably family night. So
Can we forward this to council and then if there's some changes?
Right, we could forward it to council, and then maybe you and I can have some discussions, work through that.
Okay,
Yeah.
very well.
Any other questions? concerns?
No,
It's just a-
I don't think it's really a concern about a vehicle or a craft failing. I mean, I don't think that's really happened. I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, the concert one, he reached out for it. And, you know, I mean, it's a concern that the thing might fail, but it hasn't happened. So I don't know if I'd be too overly concerned. But, fine, we can, you know, forward it on to council. I make a motion to forward it on to council and.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Dwayne to approve as amended. And then you'll discuss your.
We can look into that.
And we could tweak it for long.
Yep.
Right, discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 20 is a request by Law Department to repeal Green Bay Municipal Ordinance 2336, keeping of the register.
And this is just some cleanup. A recent Supreme Court case came out. The city of Los Angeles had a similar ordinance, and it went up to the Supreme Court and was contested on constitutionality, and it was ruled to be unconstitutional. What this is it's an ordinance that requires hotels to keep a record of everyone that stays there. And what the ordinance said is when officers walk in and they request that, you have to keep the record and you have to hand it over to them. If you don't, you get fined. What that case said is they can't have an ordinance that demands that you have to go out and get a warrant if you want to have that. Now, in reality, I think most hotels will just hand over that. But we can't have an ordinance on the books that we fine people if they don't do that. So
that's a good change.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you if this is
brother.
I couldn't tell you if this was ever used once in its existence. So
Make a motion, motion to appeal, repeal.
Motion by Alderman Scannell, second by Alderman Dwayne to repeal municipal ordinance 2336, keeping a register. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Alderman Scannell, second Alderman Dwayne. Those in favor?
Aye. No.
meeting adjourned at 6.
You wanted to talk more, didn't you? Want to reconsider something? Let's reconsider the food cart.
Stay here, I'll just turn the lights off.
There you go.